My stepdaughter used my face to scam strangers. Then one showed up, demanding me $800. She's begging, but I put her in front of a judge instead. She stole my SSN, opened credit cards and called her victims losers. I never imagined I'd end up in a situation this insane. I'm a 34-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband, 38 male, for 5 years. He has a 16-year-old daughter, Kay, from his previous marriage. We have her living with us most of the time, and I've tried to be a good stepmom. Kay is like many teens into trendy clothes, gadgets, etc. We provide what she needs, but my husband and I don't believe in buying a new iPhone or $300 sneakers on a whim. Kay has been frustrated with us about that, but we thought it was normal teenage entitlement. I started receiving packages at our house addressed to me, but they were things I never ordered. The first time I was confused but assumed it was a delivery mix-up. The box had a luxury brand wallet inside and a note saying, "Can't wait to finally meet you in person, love M." I had no clue who M was. My husband didn't know either. We brushed it off as a weird mistake, maybe a friend sending a surprise, but it didn't match any friend. Then more packages kept coming, all addressed to me. These were expensive gifts, designer shoes, high-end makeup kits, a fancy headset, even jewelry. All had little notes like someone was courting me. "Hope you enjoy this. From B," and so on. I was very alarmed and confused. My husband joked that I had a secret admirer and was a bit uncomfortable, but we both agreed I wasn't doing anything. I started to suspect maybe Kay, my stepdaughter, had something to do with it. The gifts were more along the lines of what a teenage girl would want, not me. And Kay had shown interest in some of those exact items before. I sat Kay down and asked if she knew anything about the packages. She immediately got defensive and said, "No. Why would I?" in that teenager with attitude tone. Something felt off, so I did a bit of snooping. When Kay left her laptop bag in the living room, I checked it. I found the evidence that absolutely floored me. Several fake online dating profiles using my photos and name, basically my entire identity, but portraying me as a single woman. Kay had lifted photos from my social media and even some personal details like saying I live in our city and love dogs and yoga, which is true about me. She was using an obviously fake birth date to appear 30-ish. The profiles were filled with flirty messages with men. It hit me like a truck. Kay was catfishing men online, pretending to be me, and those men sending me gifts were actually sending them to our address because she gave it out to get presents and money. I also found in her messages that she had convinced a few of these guys to send her money via online transfers. I later totaled over $3,000 in gifts and transfers she had received by duping men into thinking they were in a relationship with me. She had a secret PayPal account and also had them send Amazon and Visa gift cards. Worst of all, I discovered she didn't stop at that. She had used my personal info, name, address, birth date, possibly my SSN, to open at least 2 credit card accounts online. One was a store credit card. I found a printed email in her stuff about a credit card approval for Jane Doe. Not my real name, but it was my info. I was absolutely livid and terrified. This is identity theft and fraud, not a harmless prank. She is literally messing with my credit and impersonating me to strangers who now know my full name and address. When I confronted Kay with the evidence, she didn't even properly apologize. She was extremely defiant. She shrugged and said she needed money because her dad, my husband, wouldn't pay for the stuff she wanted. "It's not like you were using those pictures or that credit line," she said. I lost my temper and yelled that what she did is basically criminal and she's risking my safety. She yelled back that I wouldn't understand and she wasn't doing anything to me, just borrowing my image. It was a huge fight. My husband came in and tried to calm things down. My husband was upset too, but he immediately went into protective dad mode, saying things like, "She's only 16. She didn't realize how bad this was. This is just teenage stupidity." I couldn't believe he was downplaying this. I told him our address is now out there to who knows how many strange men, not to mention the financial fraud. I was shaking with anger and fear. I told both of them this is way beyond a grounding situation. It's federal crime level stuff. Kay rolled her eyes and said I was making a big deal out of nothing. "Those guys are just losers. Who cares? I needed the money. I was going to stop once I got enough for a new phone and clothes." She admitted she'd already bought herself a new iPhone with cash from one relationship. I was just speechless. I've locked down my credit accounts and I'm monitoring everything now. I made Kay give me access to all the fake profiles. She had them on a couple of dating apps and a fake Facebook account. I posted on those accounts that this was a scam, you've been catfished by a minor, and then deleted the profiles. I also reached out to 1 or 2 of the men via the app before deleting to say, "I'm so sorry. This was a fake account, a teenager was behind it, because I felt they should know to protect themselves and me. Some of them didn't take it well. Now Kay is furious at me for humiliating her and ruining her scheme. And my husband is stressed and angry, but still thinks calling the police or involving authorities would be an overreaction. He wants to handle it within the family. I'm worried because my identity has been stolen by someone in my own house. If I don't report it and fix it, I could be on the hook if she's opened credit lines. I also fear one of these scammed men might show up or do something crazy. My husband and I have been arguing. He's begging me to keep this a family matter, handle it privately like therapy for her, grounding, paying back money. He doesn't want to ruin his daughter's future with legal trouble. I understand not wanting to harm her future, but I also feel like this is a huge breach of trust and safety that we can't just sweep under the rug. She committed fraud and doesn't even seem sorry. I'm posting here because I'm genuinely torn. If I push for real consequences like involving police, making her face legal or financial repercussions, my husband thinks I'd be going too far. Essentially making me the villain for ruining a 16-year-old's life over a mistake. I feel like she's the one who involved me in a massive life-ruining mess. I don't want to be the evil stepmother, but I also don't want to let this go, and then maybe have it happen again, or get worse. So, Reddit, am I the asshole if I refuse to just hush this up? Would I be the asshole for insisting on involving authorities or otherwise making my stepdaughter face the serious consequences of her actions? Comment 1. How did she even get your personal info for the credit cards and all that? Did she hack into something or find documents? OP reply. I'm not 100% sure how she got my info. I keep my social security card and important documents in a home office file cabinet, which we thought was secure. It's possible she snooped and found my SSN and birth date there. She definitely knows basic things like my full name, address, birth date. Obviously my guess is she either rummaged through our files or possibly stole a piece of mail like those pre-approved credit offers. She hasn't told us exactly how, but from what I found, she had enough info to fill out online applications. I'm now locking everything down tight. Comment 2. Not the asshole. This is not typical teen stuff. It's a serious fraud and could have real victims. Those men could even come after you thinking you scammed them. Your husband is wrong to downplay it. You absolutely should involve the police, or at least consult a lawyer to protect yourself. OP reply. Thank you. I'm definitely leaning that way. I've already put a fraud alert on my credit, and I plan to contact the credit card companies to inform them those accounts were opened fraudulently. As for the police, I'm gathering information. I do feel I need to file a police report to document the identity theft, if only to protect myself legally. My husband is very wary, but I think he's starting to grasp that it might be necessary. Comment 3. You're the asshole. What kind of stepmother are you? She's 16 and made a mistake because she wanted stuff from her dad. Your hubby wouldn't get her. Instead of understanding her needs, you want to ruin her life by calling the cops. Unbelievable. You're supposed to protect her, not throw her to the wolves for some dumb teenage error. Get off your high horse. OP reply. You are stupid. Update 1 of First, I want to say thanks for the responses on my original post. The consensus was definitely that I'm not the asshole, and that this is a serious issue. Many of you emphasized safety, and you were right. Things actually escalated in a scary way after I posted. I thought I had shut everything down by deleting the fake profiles, but apparently some of these men had my address, since they'd been sending packages and were very invested in the fake relationships. 2 men have shown up at our house looking for me, or rather, the person Kay was pretending to be. The first guy came after I confronted Kay. I was alone at home in the afternoon. My husband was at work. Kay was at school. There was a knock, and I opened the door to find a man in his late 40s holding flowers, asking if I was my name. I kind of froze for a second. I said, "Yes, that's me." He broke into this huge smile and said he was so happy to finally see me and started saying something like he'd forgive me for disappearing for a day and that I must have gotten his gift. This man knew things. He mentioned the type of chocolates I supposedly liked, which I now realize Kay must have told him based on my favorite candy she sees me eat. It was chilling. I immediately realized this was one of the catfish victims. I stayed as calm as I could and said, "I'm sorry, but you've been deceived. I think you've been talking to someone pretending to be me." His expression shifted to confused, angry, and he said I didn't need to play games, that he was willing to work through our misunderstanding. It was like he didn't believe me. I told him I'm a married woman and that the person he was talking to was a 16-year-old using my photos. His face went through about 5 emotions at once. Then he got really angry. He started accusing me, saying I led him on and that I'd better return the $800 he sent or there would be consequences. I was terrified at that point and told him firmly he needs to leave or I'll call the police. I actually had my phone in hand, ready to dial. He called me a scammer, pardon my language, and said I hadn't heard the last from him, but then he stormed off. I was shaking. I really didn't want to call the police on him right then. He left, and I was more concerned with dealing with Kay. But I did immediately call my husband and tell him to come home. That evening we had a family discussion. My husband finally seemed to understand this is not just a teen prank, it's putting us in danger. He yelled at Kay, which I've rarely seen. He was furious that her actions led to a strange man at our door threatening me. Kay started crying, but it wasn't really an apology, more like she was scared because we were really mad. She said she never thought any of them would actually come to the house, and she only gave the address for sending stuff, not to invite them over. We told her it doesn't matter. Once those men know where we live, anything can happen. We decided to step up security. We installed a security camera and changed the Wi-Fi password. My husband also finally agreed we should at least notify the police informally about the trespasser and the background situation, so there'd be a record in case something else happened. We wanted it on file. An officer came the next day, and we explained the situation minus identifying info of Kay for the moment. The officer basically said, "Yeah, this is serious," and advised us to consider pressing charges for identity theft and fraud. He also said if that man comes back, to immediately call 911. I felt validated that an authority took it seriously. As if one stalkerish incident wasn't enough, another man showed up. This time it was evening. He was older, maybe 50s. He pounded on the door loudly. My husband and I were home. Kay was in her room. We both went to the door. I stayed back and let my husband answer. The guy was looking for, essentially me again by my name, saying something like, "I know you're in there." My name. It was horrifying. My husband opened the door with a crack with the chain on and told him he had the wrong situation, that he was scammed online. The man was agitated and kept saying he needed to talk to me. He even said, "I love you. Just come out and talk to me. Why are you hiding from me?" It was beyond creepy. We ended up yelling through the door that if he didn't leave, we'd call the police. We actually did end up calling the police that night because he lingered in our driveway for a while, yelling that I owed him an explanation. By the time officers arrived, the guy had driven off. We gave them our doorbell camera footage. The police were sympathetic and opened an investigation because this was now the second instance of a man harassing us at home due to the catfishing. They took a statement from Kay as well, and she admitted to talking to that guy online under the fake persona. So yeah, now the police are definitely aware. They haven't charged anyone yet, but they have the information. They advised me to consider getting a restraining order if any one individual keeps showing up. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. Kay has been grounded hardcore, no phone, no internet. No contact with anyone except school and us. We also finally looped in on her biological mom. My husband was initially reluctant to tell his ex, Kay's mom, because he was embarrassed and didn't trust her, but we figured she needed to know what their daughter was up to. The biome's reaction was odd. She was not as shocked as we expected and mostly just said, "I'll talk to her." At this point, my husband is no longer saying, "Just a teenage mistake." He's as alarmed as I am now, especially seeing me get threatened. He did apologize to me for not taking it seriously from the start. We are united on handling this, though we still argue a bit on how far to go. I feel we should let the authorities do their thing. He's more inclined to try and settle with these men by returning money or something quietly. Speaking of which, we actually contacted a lawyer for advice after these incidents. We were advised to not reach out directly to all the men or offer money back, yet that could be seen as admitting liability, but instead to document everything and cooperate with any investigation. The lawyer also said Kay's actions are indeed serious crimes, fraud, and identity theft, but since she's a minor, it would likely be juvenile court if it goes that route. So that's where we are. It's been very stressful and scary. I'm mostly angry at Kay. We're looking into counseling for her regardless of what else happens. This whole thing is a nightmare. I will post further updates as things progress. Right now we're just trying to keep our family safe and deal with the fallout. Comment 1. That's terrifying. Not the asshole at all. In fact, I'd be scared for my life. Did you or the police manage to identify those men? Are they pressing charges or anything? OP reply. It was extremely scary. The police identified the first guy through the info I gave. I had his first name and some details from when he showed up and from messages I'd seen. I don't know if he's pressing charges yet, but he did file some kind of complaint with the police after realizing the truth. We got a call from a detective asking for a statement. The second guy's identity we also passed on from what Kay told us. She knew his name and city from chatting. We haven't heard if he took any action, but the police are aware of him. At the very least, both incidents are on record. Comment 2. This whole thing is beyond normal teen behavior. Where did she even learn to do something like this? Was her biome any help, or does she have friends egging her on? OP reply. We have been asking ourselves that. We haven't uncovered evidence of friends being involved, it seems like she acted alone online. As for her biome, we did tell her what happened, and her reaction was oddly mild. Kids do crazy things. I'll have a chat with her. That struck me as weirdly nonchalant. I don't want to speculate too much, but I know my husband divorced her partly due to some dishonest behaviors. Not like this exactly, but she had issues with money management and integrity. I'll just put it that way. We're not sure if Kay got the idea herself or if there was any influence. It's possible Kay saw or heard things from her mom that made this scheme seem okay. At this point, we honestly suspect there's more to it and are keeping our eyes open. I'll update if we learn anything concrete about influence from her mom or others. Update 2. I wish I could say things have calmed down, but they haven't. We've had some new developments, including one of the victims threatening legal action, and my husband finally getting hit with the reality of the fraud aspect of the situation. After the 2 incidents with men showing up, we've been in close contact with the police. One of the men, the first guy with the flowers, M, has been in communication with the police, and is furious. Through the police, and indirectly through our lawyer, we learned that M is demanding compensation for the money he sent, around $800, as he claimed at the door. He's also talking about suing us, or me specifically, for fraud or emotional distress or something along those lines. Basically, he feels victimized understandably, and wants someone to pay. The police told him the perpetrator is a minor, without naming her, since they don't usually release minor info at first, but apparently that hasn't calmed him down. He's contacting a lawyer. This news absolutely rattled my husband. I think until now he saw catfishing as something contained that we could manage, but the word lawsuit jolted him. He started panicking about how we could be on the hook for money or get in legal trouble because of what Kay did. I reminded him that I am technically the person this man could try to sue since it was my identity, which is exactly why I'm so upset at Kay. That seemed to get through to him. Like he finally got that Kay essentially framed me as the scammer in these men's eyes. My husband actually said, "Oh God, she basically painted a target on your back." Yes, exactly. Thank you. We sat down with our lawyer, who explained that if the guy sues civilly, it would likely be against my husband and me as the adults, parents, since Kay is a minor. That could mean financial damages. Also, any money Kay got from these men may need to be paid back as restitution. If this goes through criminal court, we're not talking a huge fortune. From what we gathered, she got a bit over $3,000 cash total, plus gifts. But still, it's money we don't really have just lying around to throw at this because of her actions. The lawyer also pointed out something that really made my husband go pale. By opening credit cards in my name, Kay committed clear-cut identity theft and fraud, which are crimes, even as a juvenile. If the credit card companies choose to, they could press charges or at least come after us for the balances. I did catch that early, so thankfully she didn't rack up charges. She mostly used gift cards and direct money, but one card had about $200 spent online by her before I shut it down. The credit card angle also upset my husband anew, because he actually hadn't fully processed that part. He admitted he was so focused on the men sending gifts part that the financial fraud piece didn't sink in initially. He was like, "You opened credit cards in her name?" to Kay, in disbelief. Kay just crossed her arms and said, "Yeah, I did. Dad, you never let me have a credit card and I needed one for stuff." I thought his head would explode. He told her that's not how anything works, and that she basically stole from me and could have wrecked my credit score. I've since checked my score and took a small dip from the hard inquiries and that one balance, but hopefully we'll recover once this is resolved. My husband has been changing between anger and a sort of desperation. He's angry at Kay for what she's done, but I can tell he's also feeling guilty, like maybe he failed as a parent somewhere for her to do this. We had a long talk where I asked him to stop minimizing what happened. I think the combination of the angry victim threatening to sue and the word identity theft being thrown around finally made it click for him. He's no longer saying just teenage mistakes. He's fully acknowledging it's serious. That's a relief, honestly, to have him on the same page. Though it's sad it took this much. In terms of consequences, our lawyer suggested that we might want to consider proactively enrolling Kay in some kind of program or therapy, which could look good if this goes to court. We've arranged for her to start seeing a counselor. Kay is not happy about it, but at this point her opinions on the matter don't carry much weight. We also have had her write apology letters to the 2 men who showed up even if we don't send them. She wrote them, but they were pretty half-hearted. We haven't sent them yet on advice of counsel, We have to be careful. It doesn't sound like admitting liability, but it's something we may do informally later. Another development we heard from one more man through the fake account's email, which I still had access to until I deleted it. He was someone who hadn't shown up, but was clearly very emotionally invested. He basically wrote, "I know this was all fake now, you broke my heart. I'm going to the cops." I responded briefly to apologize and encourage him to indeed go to the cops if he felt he was a victim of fraud. I didn't reveal identity details, just said the person deceiving you is a minor and is facing consequences. So far, I'm aware of 3 men who have either shown up or contacted us, the authorities. There may be more out there that just quietly disappeared when the profile vanished. We don't know. Emotionally, it's been tough at home. Kay barely speaks to me, except when absolutely necessary. She's mad at the world right now. My husband is alternating between lecturing her, comforting her when she has crying fits, and then apologizing to me for all this. Update 2. I won't lie. I'm still very angry. I look at her and feel so betrayed and well used. She used my identity like a tool, and she's my family. That cuts deep. I'm trying to stay clear-headed though. We are cooperating with authorities and following our lawyer's advice. At this point, I'm less asking if I'm an asshole. I think it's clear I'm not. Or at least I hope so, and more just updating because people have asked, and also maybe I need to vent. It's likely that in the next update, I might have info on charges or what the police decide to do. Also, we have an interesting angle about her biome that's developing. Without getting into too much detail here, my husband confronted his ex, Kay's mom, more firmly about whether she knew anything or even encouraged this because he found a suspicious text on Kay's phone from her mom. Kay had deleted most incriminating chats, but one message from her mom said something like, "Did you get the money from that guy?" Yeah. We only saw that one line with no context, but that alone is disturbing. We're trying to recover more of those messages. This confirms some of our suspicions that her biome might have had a hand in coaching her. We haven't confronted the mom with that yet. We want to have more evidence, and frankly, it might end up in the hands of police if they investigate that far. So that's where things stand. My husband finally isn't downplaying anything. In fact, he's in overdrive trying to fix and manage this. I'm just here shaking my head that this is my life right now. I'll update again when there's more news. Comment 1. Has your husband considered involving CPS or something regarding the mom's influence? OP reply. Regarding her biome. We're still gathering what we can. That one text snippet we saw was very damning. My husband is furious at his ex. We haven't involved CPS or the police about the mom yet because we want more evidence of her involvement first. We did tell our lawyer, and he advised us to save everything and perhaps bring it up to the police once Kay has an attorney if it gets to that point. It's tricky. If her mom truly coached her, then Kay was being actively guided to do this, which is just... I have no polite words for it. We definitely will pursue that angle. Right now, Kay is not going to her mom's house at all. Normally, she might on some weekends, and we insisted on pausing that for the time being. Comment 2. Quick question. Have you managed to return any of the physical gifts or contact those senders, or are you holding on to them as evidence? OP reply. Good question. We have a pile of the gifts that were sent, designer items, electronics, etc. We haven't returned anything yet. Our lawyer suggested holding on to them for now as evidence, and also because some might need to be returned to the senders as part of restitution later. I did photograph and catalog each item, and we have the notes that came with them, which are honestly creepy to read. Now, if any of the guys request their stuff back through the proper channels, we will obviously return them, but we're not directly reaching out to do that on our own at this moment to avoid any missteps legally. It's all documented though. Update 3. It's been an exhausting few weeks, but we have a major development in official police action. My stepdaughter Kay is now facing juvenile charges for what she did. Here's what happened. One of the victims, the first man who showed up, M, followed through and filed a formal police report for fraud. At least one other victim did as well. The police investigation moved quickly, likely because the evidence was not hard to gather. I had saved a lot of the digital proof screenshots of profiles, messages, etc. Plus, we had those incidents of the men coming to the house documented. Officers showed up at our home with a search warrant, yes, a warrant for Kay's electronic devices. Even though we'd been cooperating, it was still jarring. They took Kay's laptop and the phone we had confiscated from her, which we hadn't allowed her to use anyway. We had already printed out some incriminating conversations from before deleting the profiles, which we also gave them. They briefly interviewed each of us with me and my husband present for Kay's interview since she's a minor. The detective asked Kay straight up about it. I was proud that I had the restraint to stay mostly quiet and let her answer. Kay admitted to a lot of it, But her tone, it was something else. She kind of minimized it by saying things like, "I didn't mean to scam anyone. I was just talking to them, and they wanted to send stuff. I was going to delete everything after a while." The detective didn't buy that, of course. He pointed out that opening credit cards in someone else's name and accepting money under false pretenses is fraud, regardless of intention. Kay then did something that honestly made my jaw drop. She tried to shift the blame onto me. She said, "I only did it because OP wouldn't help me. If she had just helped me a little, I could have told those guys to back off without them going crazy." The detective asked what she meant by help. Kay said something like, "I wanted her to maybe talk to one of them like a phone call or something just to kind of smoothly end it so they wouldn't be mad." But she instead exposed it all and made them angry. She basically implied that if I had played along just a bit, she would have eventually stopped and no one would have gotten hurt or involved the cops. I couldn't stay quiet then. I said, "You expected me to participate in your fraud to help you cover it up?" Absolutely not. Update: juvenile charges and the biome twist. The detective quickly redirected the conversation, but I was fuming. Kay was crying by the end of the interview, but again it felt more like, "I'm in trouble and it's everyone else's fault" tears. After gathering evidence in the interviews, the juvenile division of the police, with consultation from the DA's office, decided there was enough to charge Kay with a few counts in juvenile court, specifically fraud, identity theft, and credit card fraud. We got a juvenile court summons. My husband and I have already gotten her a juvenile defense attorney. We used the one our lawyer recommended. The attorney is working on a strategy. Likely they'll aim for some kind of plea deal where she admits guilt and gets a diversion program or something given it's her first offense and she's a minor. We're hoping to avoid any scenario where she's taken into custody. As of now, she's not in any juvenile detention or anything. She's allowed to stay home under our supervision until the court date, with the agreement that she can't use the internet unsupervised, etc. When we told Kay about the charges, she had a bit of a breakdown. This was the first time I saw real, genuine fear and regret on her part. She kept saying she didn't want to go to jail. We tried to reassure her that the juvenile system is different. It's not jail the way adult prison is, especially if she cooperates, but we also firmly told her this is the consequence of her own actions. She said, "I never wanted it to be like this." I responded maybe a bit harshly. "What did you expect? You impersonated an adult and tricked people out of money. This is exactly how these things end." We had a very long family talk that night. Kay finally apologized to me in a real way. She said, "I'm sorry I did this to you." She was sobbing, and it did seem sincere at that moment. I hugged her and told her I appreciated it, and that I was sorry it's gotten so out of hand but it had to be stopped. It was an emotional moment. My husband was in tears too. This whole thing has broken him a bit. However, and this is hard, the next day after that heartfelt apology, Kay was back to being a bit cold and distant. It's like she let out emotion, but then her walls went back up. She's been alternating between compliance and teen attitude. For example, she'll cooperate with her attorney, say, "Yes sir ma'am," and acknowledge she was wrong. But then later at home, if we discuss the situation, she'll get defensive again like, "Well, those guys were pervs anyway, they kind of deserved it." I've had to walk away a few times to not explode at that kind of comment. We immediately shut that down with, "No. No one deserved to be lied to and stolen from." She's a mixed bag of remorse and deflection. The biome angle, and it's bad. Regarding the biome angle, we managed to retrieve more of Kay's deleted messages with her mom. We had tech forensic help. My cousin works in IT and helped recover data from the cloud backup. What we found is damning. There are weeks of chat logs where Kay's bio mother was coaching her on this scheme. The mother literally gave her lines to use, taught her how to entice the men. Tell him you're lonely, compliment his looks, ask for little favors. She encouraged her to ask for specific gifts. At one point Kay was hesitant about giving out our address for a package, and the mom wrote, "Don't worry, they won't come in person, they're too far, too lazy, just do it girl, easy money." I felt sick reading that. This woman's ex basically led her daughter into this mess. For what? To get stuff? Maybe she promised Kay they'd share the goodies. Some messages even suggest Kay planned to bring some of the new clothes and gadgets to her mom's place to show off. It's twisted. We have given all these messages to our lawyer and Kay's juvenile attorney. The juvenile attorney said this could actually help Kay's case in the sense of explaining why she did something so outlandish, basically undue influence by a parent. It doesn't absolve her of doing it, but it may encourage the court to lean toward rehabilitation, with the understanding that she was being guided by a messed up adult. As for the biome, my husband was livid. He confronted her over the phone, informing her we have the messages and that she'd better lawyer up herself, because we might pursue action against her. She responded by cussing him out and claiming I turned her daughter against her, and that's why Kay did this. Classic deflection. We've also shown those messages to the detective. He said it's possible the DA might consider charges against the biome for contributing to the delinquency of a minor or something similar, but that would be a separate investigation. At the very least, family court might need to get involved to adjust custody or visitation. Right now, needless to say, Kay is not allowed to see or communicate with her biomother while all this is pending. That's partly our decision and partly the advice of Kay's lawyer. What's next? There will be a juvenile court hearing. Likely Kay will admit to what she did, with the influence factor presented, and the court will assign consequences. The likely outcomes we've been told to expect are things like restitution, community service, mandatory counseling, probation. Stuff aimed at making her take responsibility and not re-offend, rather than punitive jail time. We're okay with that. We don't want her life ruined, we just want her to learn and make amends. I'll update again after the court hearing and share the outcome. Thanks again for everyone's support and advice. It has helped me stay strong through this. Comment 1. Are the victims getting any restitution or updates through this process? OP reply. We plan on it. At the juvenile hearing, the prosecution will likely bring up restitution. We have the amount roughly that Kay received, and the judge can order her us as her father as guardian to pay that back as part of the outcome. We're prepared to do that to close this chapter, even though it'll hurt us financially. As for updates, I believe the victims who filed complaints will be informed by the DA of what happens. If they want to, they can attend the hearing or give a statement. It's a bit different since it's juvenile court. Often those are closed to the public to protect the minor's privacy, but victims do have rights to restitution and to be heard. So yes, they should get some closure in that sense. We definitely want to repay what was taken from them and have Kay understand that money doesn't just come for free, there are real people on the other end. Update 4, final update. This will likely be the last update, as the core situation has been resolved as much as it can be. A lot has happened. We've been through the juvenile court process, and I have made some decisions about my marriage. Juvenile court outcome. Kay's case went to a hearing in juvenile court. It was closed to the public, but my husband and I were there, of course, and so was Kay's biome. More on that in a second. Kay's attorney had worked out a deal with the juvenile prosecutor. Kay had to formally admit to the charges: fraud, identity theft. Given it was her first offense and the surrounding circumstances, they categorized her case as suitable for a diversion program and probation rather than any detention. The judge was pretty stern with Kay, I have to say. He looked at her and said, paraphrasing, "What you did was not a prank. It was a series of crimes that hurt real people. I've read statements from 2 victims who felt heartbroken and humiliated. I've also reviewed evidence that an adult, your mother, actively encouraged you. That likely saved you from a harsher penalty, because I see a minor who was being led astray by someone who should protect you. However, it does not excuse your behavior. You knew right from wrong enough to hide it from your stepmother and father. You knew it was wrong, and you did it anyway." Kay was tearing up during this, nodding along. The judge's orders were as follows: restitution. Kay is required to pay back a total of $3,500 to the identified victims, the amount they sent her or spent on gifts that can't be returned. Since Kay obviously doesn't have money, that burden falls on us, her parents, to pay on her behalf. She will owe it to us eventually. We've worked out paying that to the court, which will then disperse to the victims. We did manage to return some unopened physical gifts through the police, which helped reduce the total a bit. Community service. Kay must complete 200 hours of community service. That's quite a lot for a juvenile case, but I think the judge wanted it to be significant. She'll likely be doing work at a local charity thrift store and some community cleanup programs. Probation. She's on probation for 1 year. That means she has a curfew, must meet regularly with a probation officer, maintain good behavior, avoid further infractions, and continue counseling. Counseling. The court mandated she continue with counseling therapy, focusing on decision-making, ethics, and the issues with her mom. She had already started with a therapist we found, and now it's official. She has to stick with it. No contact with co-conspirator. Though they didn't name the mom as a charged party in the juvenile case, the judge explicitly ordered that Kay is to have no contact with her biological mother during the period of probation except via therapists, or supervised if necessary. This was huge. It basically validated that the biome is viewed as a harmful influence. My husband will be going back to family court to get that formalized in the custody arrangement as well. Speaking of the biome, she showed up in court and had the nerve to try and act like Mother of the Year, sitting behind Kay, giving her tissues, etc. She even tried to speak at one point, but the judge shut her down, saying it wasn't her turn to speak since she wasn't a party or attorney. The judge did address her indirectly, saying something like, "Any parent who encourages a child to commit fraud is doing egregious harm." She just kept a scowl on her face after that. She left without talking to us. Honestly, I hope she does face charges of her own eventually. We handed over all the recovered communications to the prosecutor. Whether they pursue something against her, I don't know, but at least it's documented in the case file. The state of things at home and my marriage. That brings me to where things are at home now, and the part I know some folks were curious about, my marriage. This entire experience has put a spotlight on some deep-rooted issues between my husband and me. Now that the urgent crisis is over, I had to reevaluate my feelings. I told my husband I want to go to couples therapy because I have a lot of lingering resentment and trust issues now. He agreed immediately. In fact, he's been almost overly accommodating, likely because he senses that I've thought about leaving. To be perfectly transparent, I did consider divorce. When I wrote my last update, I was very close to thinking our marriage might not survive. My husband's initial minimization of the problem and his general conflict-avoidant approach with Kay really hurt our relationship. I told him that. I said I felt unsupported and even betrayed at first when he wanted to sweep it under the rug. He in turn broke down and apologized, saying he was in denial, scared, and that he knows he handled it poorly. He seems genuinely remorseful and is trying to make amends. At this point, I haven't made a final decision to stay or leave. What I've decided is to give it a chance with therapy to see if we can rebuild because aside from this catastrophe, we do love each other and have built a life. It's not easy to throw that away. But I made it clear. If he ever disregards my safety or instincts like that again, I'm gone. And if I can't truly forgive him after some time, I'll also be gone. He said he understands completely and will do whatever it takes. I realize this whole saga might sound dramatic, but I've tried to present it factually, not like a soap opera. It's been a nightmare, but at least now there's a path forward. I want to say thank you to everyone who read through this and offered perspective. Even the tough love comments, and the one or two calling me an a-hole, gave me a lot to think about. My parents told me, "It's time you found a wife," then kicked me out from my jobless brother. So I bought the house and made him pay rent. Or leave. "You've always been jealous of me," my brother yelled. I smiled. "No, I just showed up, and now I own everything you thought was yours." This occurred over the course of several years. Utilizing fake disclaimers. I, a 32-year-old male, always knew my family considered me to be their backup son. You know how some parents pretend to love? Are all of their children treated equally? Mine didn't even try to conceal their bias. My brother Ethan was their pride and pleasure. Personally, I was just there. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Minneapolis, my mother would literally beam whenever Ethan entered a room. She'd corner random folks in church or the grocery store to boast about Ethan's recent accomplishments, while I stood there like a damn shadow. When he departed to prepare for college at Northwestern, she was depressed for months. Not exaggerating. She called him every day, just like she was going through withdrawal or something. It was truly pathetic to watch. They didn't hate me. I just wasn't Ethan. He was loud and played football and received all of the attention, his charismatic personality or being an annoying loudmouth. I was more reserved, but athletic. I wrestled in high school and even placed in state. Twice. However, somehow my trophies ended up in boxes in the basement. Participation medals from elementary school football had top display space in the living room. I am not even joking. This guy had a greatly improved certificate from 4th grade football hanging in the hallway until I moved out. I realized quite early that no matter what I achieved, I would never measure up to Saint Ethan. Even though I graduated with honors in business management and got solid work in a medical equipment distribution company, my mother responded, "That's nice, honey. I heard Ethan might be up for a promotion in his marketing firm." Mind you, Ethan had been up for promotion about 5 times already, and somehow never received it. Possibly because he spent more time networking at bars than actually working. However, my parents would never acknowledge that. The worst part was that I accepted it. I assumed that's how families worked. Someone gets to be the golden child, and someone must be the spare. Guess which role I got stuck with? When I was 23, I was working. For about a year following graduation, my parents dropped what they believed to be good news. They were going to retire. Mom had me jumping between random part-time jobs. I worked at apparel businesses for years, and Dad was done as an insurance adjuster. Their great plan? I'd move back home to assist until Ethan had kids. Then they'd relocate to Colorado to be near him. Let's fast forward. Ethan and Lena still hadn't produced the grandchildren they were desperate for. Indeed, he was really struggling. He and his wife struggled to pay their payments in Denver. I hadn't seen him since I think it was 2 Christmases ago, and he spent the entire weekend complaining about his condominium, his boss, and pretty much his entire existence. He wore fancy clothing he could not afford. He would show up in these $300 jeans and new watches, grumbling about how the system was keeping him down. He scarcely acknowledged me, treating me as if I weren't family. The dog was only there for the background noise. Meanwhile, I was holding everything together. I had worked my way up to regional sales manager, which began paying rent to cover their expenditures. I took care of the house and yard. Everything. I even renovated their bathroom and constructed a balcony in the backyard with my own 2 hands. Put in these composite boards that do not splinter or decay. Did all of the railings. I am the whole 9 yards. My life wasn't ideal, but it was reliable. I had a good bunch of mates and played in a recreational hockey league. I dated when I had the time. But no matter what I did, my mother continued to discuss Ethan as if he were God's gift to humanity. When I closed a significant account, increasing my commission by thousands, Mom responded by asking if I could lend Ethan money since he was going through a hard stretch, the roughest. Having leased a BMW, he couldn't afford it and was now scared about the payments. But this wasn't the first. It was perhaps the 5th time they had asked me to bail him out. Every family gathering, it was the Ethan show. If he bothered to call in on holidays, everyone would crowd around the phone as if the president was on the line. If he deigned to visit, my folks would stay weeks preparing, getting his favorite foods, tidying his previous room like the Queen was coming to stay. On my birthday, Mom would make a boxed cake. On Ethan's birthday, she would spend 3 days cooking all his favorites and invite the entire extended family. Then everything went to Ethan. He lost his job. He and Lena were already living together, living paycheck to paycheck, maxing out credit cards to preserve their picture. They were completely screwed. My mom behaved like this was the best news ever, not a joke. She virtually bounced in her seat at supper. "This is perfect," she squealed. "Ethan and Lena can move in while he regains his footing, and perhaps after they're situated, they will finally start a family." My stomach dropped. The way she stated it made it obvious she had been waiting for this. The same situation has played out for years. Never did she want to know what I thought about it. I was just expected to go along with whatever. Ethan, as usual, was in need. I remember staring at my plate and pushing around the mashed potatoes thinking, here we go again. Ethan fucked up, and everyone bends over backward to accommodate him. It became worse. After a few evenings, they sat me down for a family meeting. They wanted me to move out. There simply wasn't ample room for everyone, Mom stated, in a fake lovely voice. Besides, it's time for you to focus on finding a bride. Mom stated there was ample room for everyone, this in a fake lovely voice. Besides, it's time for you to focus on finding a bride and start your own family. But here's the kicker. They still expected me to continue paying rent even after I departed. I just sat there, feeling like I'd been sucker punched. For 5 freaking years I had put my life on hold to aid them. I had been the responsible one, while Ethan spent his life hundreds of miles away, and now they're kicking me out so Golden Boy and his wife might hijack my place. Dad must have noticed I was about to lose it, because he swiftly suggested I should take my time thinking about it. But I didn't need time. For the first time in my childhood, I saw my parents for what they really were. It was never about being fair or recognizing what I had done for them. It was always about Ethan. I recall thinking, let's get this straight. You want me to move out of the house I've been keeping and paying for so Ethan can move in? And you still expect me to pay rent after I leave? Mom had the audacity to say, well, we're on a fixed income. Now, Ethan will need time to discover a new job. It would only last until he gets back on his feet. And how long will that be? I asked. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, you know Ethan. He's so talented. He'll find something in no time. Yeah. Just like all those other times he was on the verge of success, I muttered. I've heard that song before. By morning, that emptiness had hardened into pure rage. I kept replaying every family dinner where they talked about Ethan, instead of asking about my promotion. Every time Mom displayed his old high school shirts to visitors, while my wrestling trophies accumulated dust in the garage, every sign that I was simply a placeholder until they could get their golden child back. However, they still expected me to pay. I was not going to pay their bills. I informed them that I would no longer be their ATM. I thought about it, but my mind was already made up. I was done being their backup plan. Over the next week, I discreetly packed my belongings starting with the vital ones. Papers and valuables, followed by clothing and other things I couldn't live without. I didn't inform them what I was doing. I knew I would lose it if they gave me any crap about it. I had gathered a lot of stuff over the years. Weights, equipment, publications, all the garments, everything had to be cataloged. I packed carefully. I had built a wonderful set of tools that worked on the house, and I wasn't going to leave them behind for Ethan to pawn the moment I was gone. I carefully packed my grandfather's antique toolbox, the only actual inheritance I'd gotten in this family, and made sure every socket and wrench was accounted for. While packing, I was also looking for a new place. I'd been paying for a place to live a significant portion of their mortgage, so I figured I could afford my own. I found a decent place in under 15 minutes. Close to work, good layout, 2 bedrooms. There was also a balcony where I could barbecue. Most importantly, it was mine. I signed the lease on a Thursday and scheduled the move over the weekend. My parents assumed I was still thinking about their proposal. Little did they know, I was methodically distancing myself from their life. Leaving that night was intense. I waited until after midnight, partially because it felt like a prison break, and partly because I couldn't handle their queries or guilt trips. I had already transferred most of my belongings over the past few days. I told my folks I was rearranging. They noticed boxes vanishing. This last trip was for my bed, the rest of my clothing, and my gaming setup. I left my house keys on the kitchen counter with a simple note. I found my own place. Don't approach me about rent. Simple. Everything we do is straightforward and direct. The relationship was not. I loaded the last of my belongings into my truck and drove away without looking back. The following morning, I blocked both my parents and Ethan on literally everything. Phone, email. I didn't even want to use social media, including LinkedIn. He tried to contact me through work connections. For the first time in years I felt liberated. That first week in my new house was like walking into a new life. I could leave my exercise bag on the couch without mom complaining. I could come and go without explanation. I even started meal prepping properly and got back to my training schedule without interruptions. I set up my weight bench in the second bedroom. I got all of my protein and vitamins organized in the kitchen. For once, I didn't have to explain to anyone why I needed so much chicken breast in the fridge. However, the peace didn't last. About 3 weeks after I moved out, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I had to pick up. It was my Uncle Tom. Tom and Dad had a competitive relationship since they were children. Unlike my father, Tom did not fuck. He had always been honest with me, and I respected that. He was the one I learned how to change my oil and fix a faulty faucet from, when Dad was too busy watching Ethan's high school games. "Noah, what the hell, man?" he asked. "You've just disappeared from your parents. They're about to lose their house." "What?" I was extremely surprised. "What are you talking about?" That's when Tom dropped the bombshell. It turned out Ethan had been jobless for 6 months, not just a few weeks like Mom claimed. And my parents had been surreptitiously sending him money the entire time, not just in modest amounts, thousands every month to keep both him and Lena afloat in their pricey condo. To make matters worse, they took out a second mortgage on the house without telling me. I could barely process what I was hearing. "So let me get this straight," I said, my knuckles white as I grasped the phone. "They borrowed against the home without telling me, then expected me to continue covering their mortgage while they kept helping Ethan and Lena?" "That's right," Tom agreed. "And now they're worried because if they continue to miss payments, they might lose their house. You need to step up and fix this, Noah." I laughed. Actually, I laughed. "Fix it? Why is this my responsibility?" "They're your parents, Noah," Tom snapped. "Family takes care of each other." "Really? Where was Ethan when they needed assistance? He's been bleeding them dry for years. I've been the one keeping a roof over their heads." Tom went silent. He knew I was right. "Look, Tom, I appreciate the call, but this is not my problem. They chose Ethan like they always do. Now they can deal with the repercussions." After hanging up, I sat there in astonishment as the truth sank in like a stone. All the times they said they were a touch tight this month, when I asked if I might chip in more for utilities, it wasn't because their retirement wasn't going far enough. It was because they were funneling funds to Ethan behind my back. While I was working overtime to make ends meet, they were enabling Ethan's careless lifestyle, a betrayal that cut deep. Truly hit deep. For days, I attempted to process everything. The more I considered it, the more betrayed I felt. I had unintentionally been helping Ethan and Lena stay afloat in their pompous lifestyle, while my rent money was directed to them by my parents. So after digging this hole, they expected me to leap in and pull them out. This was not my problem. But then I started thinking about the house itself. I grew up there. Put in a lot of work. A small part of me didn't want to watch my parents lose it even if our relationship was in the toilet. I'd spent weekends renovating the roof, replacing obsolete wiring, and repairing plumbing. That sweet equity would vanish if the bank foreclosed. Also, if I was going to continue paying for something, I wanted it to benefit me, not just fuel Ethan's sense of entitlement. So I created an offer. When I arrived at the house, Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad scarcely glanced at me as he let me in. I wasn't surprised to see Ethan. Lena was also seated there. Ethan had that arrogant expression on his face, as if he'd already won whatever game they were playing. He had gained weight and was wearing a showy watch which probably cost more than 1 month's rent. Typical Ethan. Broke, but keeping up appearances. I understand about the second mortgage, I said immediately, standing with my arms folded and watching their faces. Mom's hopeful expression immediately twisted into guilt. Ethan just scowled, perplexed. Tom told me everything, I added. Mom sighed. Tom ought to mind his own business. Maybe, but I'm glad he didn't. Otherwise, I'd still have no idea you were using my money to pay for Ethan's expenditures. Dad began to interrupt, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. I'm not here to fight or rehash the past. I have a solution that benefits everyone. I laid it out. I proposed that I take over the house totally in my name, managing the mortgage legally. A true official transfer. They could continue to live there, but only if Ethan and Lena paid at least their fair share of rent. The same rent I'd been paying since I was 23. Mom hesitated. This is our family home. We won't just sign it over to you. You act like it's meaningless. It isn't nothing. I responded, keeping my voice stable. It's your chance to keep it instead of losing the entire house. Currently the bank owns more of it than you do. If you continue to miss payments, they'll take it back. This is your best shot. Ethan jumped in. You can't just walk in and take something that doesn't belong to you. This was supposed to be my inheritance, he said, his voice rising with every syllable. You've always been jealous of me trying to outdo me. Now you're using Mom and Dad's situation to steal what should be mine. I laughed right in his face. Your inheritance, Ethan? You've scarcely stepped foot in this house in 10 years. I've been here looking after Mom and Dad and paying the bills, while you've been living your life 3 states away and bleeding them dry. His face turned red, but he had no comeback. He just sputtered about how I didn't understand his situation and how the job market was terrible right now. Rich, coming from a guy who'd had 5 different jobs in the last 3 years, none of which he'd held for more than 6 months. I'm not trying to steal anything, I said calmly but firmly. But I'm not going to keep putting money into a sinking ship without expecting anything in return. If you want to stay, you need to contribute. Otherwise that's fine, but I won't pay for you to stay here for free while I struggle on my own. The room went silent. Eventually Dad spoke. We'll think about it. I nodded. Take as much time as you need, but remember the bank won't wait. You're already months behind. Payments are the only way you'll get my assistance. As I turned to go, Ethan couldn't resist one last dig. This is bullshit, he muttered. You've always been trying to prove you're better than me. I just smiled. No, Ethan. I don't have to try. I just have to show up. The expression on his face was priceless. I think that was the first time I had actually stood up to him directly. Mom gasped, as if I had slapped someone. Dad just stared at the floor. But it felt amazing. Damn good to finally express what I'd been thinking all these years. For a week, I didn't hear anything. I assumed they were still arguing over it. Or more likely, Ethan was trying to persuade them to hold out for a better offer, or find another sucker to help them out. Probably figured if they ignored me long enough, I'd cave and just give them money with no strings attached. That's how it had always worked before. Then, out of nowhere, Lena called me. Her voice was shaking with fear. She told me Ethan hadn't paid a single cent toward the mortgage, even after they obtained a foreclosure notice. He was insisting that I was merely attempting to lure everyone into giving me the house and that it wasn't his obligation. But Lena wasn't buying it anymore. I don't want to lose the house, Noah, she said, her voice trembling. I know your offer is reasonable. I've been looking for a job, but Ethan keeps repeating that I don't need to work. Something will work out. He spent days playing video games and going out with his friends while my parents were worried about losing everything. If I don't do something right now, she continued, I'll end up. She proceeded to describe how Ethan would leave the house at midday, claim he was networking, then come home drunk at 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Mom was still doing his laundry and making excuses for him, even as the foreclosure notices piled up. I honestly felt sorry for Lena. She wasn't a horrible person, she was just stuck with my entitled brother. So I made her a new offer. Same deal as before, with one change. Ethan must leave if he refuses to pay the rent. Lena could stay, but he was out. I can't kick my own brother out, I explained. But I can determine the terms if he wants to stay in my place. If he can't comply with those requirements, he has to leave. Lena agreed to present my offer to everyone. Part of me wondered if she secretly hoped Ethan would decline and that she'd have an excuse to leave him. The next meeting was a complete shit show. As soon as I mentioned rent, Ethan completely lost his mind. He jumped up, knocked over a coffee mug with his chair, and started yelling every insult he could think of, calling me a greedy bastard, accusing me of manipulating everyone. He even got in my face and tried to intimidate me, but I stood my ground. I had been dealing with his temper tantrums our entire lives. I wasn't about to back down now. "You think you're so much better than me?" he roared, his face inches from mine. "You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. That's what this is about, isn't it? You're still that poor little boy who couldn't handle not being the favorite." I didn't take the bait. "This isn't about who's the favorite, Ethan. This is about responsibility. You had a free ride your entire life and now the bill is due." He spat. "Fuck you, I don't need your help. I'm gonna make it big any day now. I've got prospects." "Prospects don't pay the mortgage," I said simply. Mom and Dad tried to play peacemaker, but it was clear they still sided with him. Mom kept saying, "Ethan is going through a hard time right now." While Dad just glanced at the floor, defeated, as if he realized I was right but couldn't force himself to stand up to Ethan or Mom. Standing in the doorway, I said, "If you're not willing to accept the help I'm offering, I can't do anything else. Best of luck with the foreclosure." Walking away wasn't easy. I kept telling myself it wasn't my responsibility to fix my parents' mistakes. But that unpleasant voice in my head kept whispering, "What if they lose the house? What if it's your fault?" This time I refused to let guilt take control of me. I had done my part. I had given them a way out. They chose to reject it. That was their decision, not mine. Months passed. My life got better. I started dating a physical therapist named Claire, got promoted at work, started taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes twice a week. My apartment finally felt like home. For the first time in years, I realized how much I had missed, not anything extraordinary, just the simple freedom to live on my own terms. No one questioned why I needed so much freezer space for meal prep. No one makes snarky remarks about my obsession with exercise. No one made me feel like I was taking up space that rightfully belonged to someone else. Lena called me once more, crying so hard I could barely understand her. The bank was officially moving forward with the house purchase. The foreclosure wasn't just a warning anymore, it was happening. Ethan had refused to even consider my offer. Their fights had gotten so bad, the neighbors had called the cops twice. "I can't do this anymore, Noah," she cried. "I have nowhere to go. Ethan maxed out all our credit cards. His friends have stopped letting him crash. Your parents are on their last nerve. The stress is causing health issues. Your mom's blood pressure is through the roof. Your dad looks like he's aged 10 years in the last 3 months. Please, if there's anything you can do." She told me about Ethan's lies and how he told everyone he had job interviews that didn't exist. How he even borrowed Dad's emergency credit card and racked up charges at bars and restaurants. When confronted, he exploded in rage, screaming that everyone was against him. I felt Lena deserved better than this. I felt sorry for her. My parents and Ethan, not her, had created this mess. I decided to give it one last shot. This time there was no room for negotiation. I would buy the house. But the title had to be transferred to my name immediately. Ethan, Lena, and my parents could stay, but Ethan would have to pay rent. If he refused, he had to go. And I made it clear. I wasn't covering any more of Ethan's expenses. This was my final offer. I told Lena they could take it or leave it, but I wasn't going anywhere. To my surprise, my parents finally agreed. I guess the fear of losing the house was stronger than their need to protect Ethan's ego. Even Ethan didn't fight much this time, though the look on his face made it clear he was furious. That day, we signed the documents and transferred the house to my name. It didn't feel real. My mom kept dabbing her eyes with a tissue, like she was signing away a child instead of a deed. My dad just looked at the house with slumped shoulders, signing where the lawyer pointed without reading the docs. Ethan wasn't there. Couldn't bother to show up for something this important. Typical. Just like that, I bought the house I grew up in. The house I'd been helping pay for since I was 23. The house that was supposed to be my inheritance someday. Someday had finally arrived. But not the way any of us imagined. I had always disliked him. Mom slumped in cries and wails about how her family was being torn apart. Dad simply sat at the kitchen table, looking blankly ahead. My folks were outraged. They accused me of being heartless, of leaving my family when they needed me most. However, I had heard it all before, and this time, it did not work. If they wanted to help Ethan, they could leave with him. I told them exactly what I told Ethan. This is my house now. Firmly. I had given Ethan additional chances. He was given 3 months to get his act together. He hadn't. I tried, but I am not operating a charity. He's your brother, Mom screamed. How can you do this to your own flesh and blood? Same way you had no issue kicking me out to make space for him, I replied. Same way you lied to me for years about where my money was going. You never stood up for me when Ethan treated me like crap. That silenced her. To my astonishment, they actually left. Reluctantly packed and moved out. The only one willing to take them in was Uncle Tom. The same one who lectured me about how families should stick together. Isn't karma a bitch? Tom lives in a modest 3-bedroom house. Must have been a dreadful change for my parents. Mom and Dad had to get part-time jobs at a hardware store just to pay their bills. Ethan, of course, went with them. He believed he was somehow the victim in all of this. I heard through the grapevine he was sleeping on a pull-out couch in Tom's home office, whining constantly about the lack of privacy. Lena didn't last more than a week with them. One evening she arrived at my door with a suitcase. I'm done, she simply said. I can't live like that anymore. Ethan refuses to get a job, and your mother still treats him like he's 12. She makes him lunch every day. At 32, Lena was actually trying to get back on her feet. I let her stay in the spare bedroom for a while. She landed a job at a local boutique quickly and eventually moved into her own place. I don't blame her for getting divorced. Ethan had been dragging her down for years. For me, everything just got better from there. Owning a house gave me a sense of security I'd never had before. For the first time, I had a place that was truly mine. I remodeled and converted the kitchen. Ethan's old room became a home gym power rack, bench, full dumbbell set. I built a fire pit in the backyard, replaced the old carpet with hardwood floors, painted the walls, and finally fixed the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom, the one Dad had been meaning to get to for a decade. A year later, my girlfriend Claire, 28, moved in. We got married in a small ceremony. I didn't invite my parents. Maybe not Ethan either. We've been crushing it ever since. Claire opened her own physical therapy practice, and I launched my own medical equipment distributorship after learning the industry from the inside out. About 6 months ago, karma struck. I was leaving the gym when my phone rang, another unknown number. It was my father. Noah, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I know we haven't talked in a long time, but we need help. Turns out Tom had had enough. He was done with the drama and Ethan's refusal to contribute anything. He gave them 30 days to find another place to live. Mom had been diagnosed with high blood pressure from the stress. Dad's part-time job barely covered their meds. What about Ethan? I asked. Where's he in all this? Dad sighed. He moved to Florida with some friends. Said he needed a fresh start. He hasn't called in months. I nearly laughed. Of course Ethan bailed when things got real. The golden child had abandoned the throne when it became too much work to sit on it. So now you're calling me? I asked. After everything? Son. Please. Dad's voice cracked. We were wrong. We've always been wrong about you. You were the one who was there for us. We chose Ethan every time. I don't expect you to forgive us, but we don't have anywhere else to go. I thought about telling them to figure it out themselves the same way they once told me. But I'm not like them. I'm better. There's a small apartment over the garage I've been renovating. Finally I said, you can stay. Temporarily. But there are conditions. You pay what you can for rent, even if it's just a few hundred. You don't mention Ethan to me or to Claire. And you openly acknowledge that you were wrong. There was silence on the other end. Thank you, Noah, Dad said. I don't deserve it, but I appreciate it. They moved in last month. It's been awkward. Mom cried when she saw all the renovations I'd made to the house. Dad actually shook my hand and looked me in the eye for the first time in years. They've been walking on eggshells. It's a complete reversal from how things used to be. Last week I overheard Mom on the phone with one of her church friends. My son Noah runs his own business now, she said with that same proud tone she used to reserve only for Ethan. He was always the responsible one. It shouldn't matter, but somehow, it does. Mom's been trying to make amends in her own way. Brings over dinner sometimes. Offers to help Claire with the garden. Dad's been more straightforward. He actually sat down with me last weekend and apologized. He said he was always proud of me, he just didn't know how to express it, that he had let Mom's obsession with Ethan define our family dynamic for too long. In many ways, it's too little, too late, but it's something. As for Ethan, the last I heard, he got fired from a bartending job in Miami. He was begging Mom for money again. She told him she couldn't afford it anymore. Baby steps, I suppose. 2 weeks ago, I received an email from Ethan, just one line. "I hope you're happy now, you turned everyone against me." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh. But then I remember all those years I spent as an afterthought. The backup plan. The safety net. I refused to keep being the responsible one while receiving nothing in return. The house that was supposed to be Ethan's inheritance? It's where my child will be raised. Claire is about to become a mother. Our first child is a boy. And trust me, if we have more kids, they'll all be loved equally. Edit update. Holy shit. This blew up overnight. Thank you everyone, I've received awards and a lot of support. Many of you have asked for updates on Ethan, so here's the latest. He's back in Minnesota, currently living in a crappy apartment and working at a cell phone store. Still calls Mom frequently asking for loans which everyone knows will never be repaid. He even had the nerve last week to try reaching out to Claire on Facebook, hoping she'd talk some sense into me. She blocked him immediately. Dad has been stepping up more recently, fixing up the apartment over the garage, making it more comfortable for them. Mom still makes excuses for Ethan. Still gives that martyred expression sometimes. But she's trying with Claire, and I respect that. As for me, business is good. Claire's pregnancy is going well. And for once, I slept peacefully at night knowing I finally stood up for myself. Some of you called me an asshole for how I handled things. And maybe I was. But after more than 30 years of being the family doormat, I'm fine with that. Edit 2. In case you were wondering about Lena, she's doing fantastic. She's got her own house, started taking classes at the community college, and is dating a good guy who actually has a job. We still grab coffee occasionally. She's genuinely becoming friends with Claire, which is a plot twist I didn't expect, but honestly, it's kind of wholesome. And yes, I did change all the names in this story. Not that Ethan would read anything longer than a tweet, but still, safer. My relatives mocked me as washer girl, at 17. 1 year later, I exposed their $4.3 million scam, got their mom arrested, and took over the business. Okay Reddit, this is going to be a long one. I, 19, female, need to write this down, 'cause honestly, my head's been spinning with everything that's happened. Really never thought I'd be sharing my life story here, but whatever. Here goes. It all started when my dad got diagnosed with cancer. I was 14, just starting high school, thinking my biggest problem was going to be algebra or something. Dad had been feeling tired for a while, but we thought it was just work stress, you know? Then one regular Tuesday after school, Mom sat me down in our kitchen and told me he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The next 6 months were like watching a movie of someone else's life. Dad got super sick super fast. Lost all his hair, lost so much weight. His favorite Chicago Bears jersey looked like a tent on him. He tried to keep joking around, still helped me with my math homework, even when he could barely sit up. The last thing he said to me was, "Don't let your mom's cooking kill you before I get back," when they took him to the hospital for the last time. That was just so Dad. Always trying to make me laugh. He died on a Thursday. I remember because it was supposed to be pizza night. We'd always get a deep dish on Thursdays, and had been doing it since I was little. Instead, I was sitting in a hospital waiting room with those stupid flickering fluorescent lights, watching my mom cry into her phone while telling our relatives. I thought that was going to be the worst part of my life. Boy, was I wrong. Mom totally lost it after Dad died. Started dating 2 months later. Said she needed to feel alive again or whatever. That's how she met Ralph. Rich guy, real estate developer type. He started coming around all the time, bringing Mom fancy gifts, taking her on weekend trips. I tried to be happy for her. I really did. Dad wouldn't want her to be sad forever, right? But then she married Ralph less than a year after Dad died. Didn't even tell me they were engaged. I found out when she told me to try on a junior bridesmaid dress she'd already bought. The wedding was at some fancy country club in Newport Beach. All of Ralph's rich friends were there. looking at us like we were some charity case Ralph had adopted. I spent most of the reception hiding in the bathroom, trying not to cry. That's when everything really changed. Mom and Ralph moved into his massive house in Newport Beach. We're talking about one of those places with a pool and a tennis court. But guess what? There wasn't room for me. Mom said I'd be more comfortable living with Dad's sister, Aunt Astrid, in Chicago. More comfortable for who, Mom? So I got shipped off to Chicago like some package nobody wanted. Aunt Astrid lives in this huge house in Lincoln Park with Uncle Marcus and my cousins, Michael, 17 male, and Rebecca, 18 female. We used to be super close when we were kids. They'd come visit every summer and we'd spend weeks making up stupid games and building blanket forts. But man, everything was different once I actually moved in. Suddenly I wasn't their fun summer cousin anymore. I was this unwanted extra person in their house. They started acting like I was taking up their space, eating their food, breathing their precious air or something. Michael would accidentally knock over my stuff all the time. Rebecca would make these little comments about how her clothes were too nice to lend me when I first got there and didn't have winter stuff. Aunt Astrid was the worst though. Made it super clear I was a burden. Started charging me rent, even though I was still in high school. Who even does that? The really messed up part. Mom just stopped calling. Like completely. She'd send money sometimes, not enough to actually cover the rent Aunt Astrid charged, but that was it. When I tried calling her, she was always too busy with her new life. Too busy at yoga. Too busy at charity events. Too busy to talk to her own kid. I'd see pictures on Facebook of her and Ralph on vacation in Europe, at fancy parties, living this whole other life where I didn't exist. She even archived all our old family photos, the ones with Dad and me. Said they didn't match her new profile aesthetic. Like I was just some old furniture that didn't go with her new decor. I started having these dreams. When I was back in our old kitchen, where everything was normal. Then I would wake up crying in this weird bedroom at Aunt Astrid's house, staring at these fancy wallpapers that cost more than my whole wardrobe. Feeling like I'd lost both parents instead of just one. So after that first month at Aunt Astrid's, she hit me with this rent increase because of property taxes or whatever. I'm like, I'm 15, but okay. Guess I need a job. That's when my cousin Rebecca, oh so helpfully, tells me about this 24-hour laundromat that's hiring in what she calls the sketchy part of Chicago. It's this run-down building, wedged between a closed-down doll store and this super sus phone repair shop that I'm pretty sure never actually repairs any phones. The owner, this old guy named Jerry, takes one look at me and goes, "You're way too young to work the midnight shift." But then I told him I could start that night and wouldn't complain about the pay, and suddenly my age wasn't such a big deal anymore. So my life became this crazy schedule that honestly still gives me anxiety thinking about it. Midnight to 6 a.m. at the laundromat, where I had to deal with the weirdest people you can imagine. The worst part wasn't even the weird customers, it was how cold that place got. The heating barely worked, and Chicago winters are no joke. I'd wear like 3 hoodies just to survive my shift. Never put that in the job description, did they? But one job wasn't enough to cover Aunt Astrid's rent, plus basic stuff like, food and school supplies. So I also started working at this gas station called Quick Stop from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is where my dear cousins decided to make my life extra fun. See, Quick Stop was right by their fancy private school, where tuition probably cost more than I made in a year. Michael and his friends thought it was hilarious to come in during my shifts and just trash the place. They'd knock over the chip displays I just organized, spill their Slurpees, accidentally all over the floor, leave opened bags of beef jerky everywhere. Rebecca was worse though. She was sneakier about it. She'd come in with her cheerleader friends, and they'd do this thing where they'd talk super loud about me like I wasn't there. Oh my God, can you imagine having to work here? Like I'd literally die. Or, ew, look at her uniform. It's so polyester. Then they'd take these awful pictures of me trying to clean up their messes and post them on their social media. The school stuff got bad too. I was going to the public high school nearby, and somehow Rebecca made sure everyone there knew about my jobs. People started leaving quarters on my desk for laundry. Someone stuck a name tag on my locker that said "Washer Girl." Real creative, guys. Thanks. I was basically sleeping through all my classes, 'cause who can stay awake when you're working from midnight to 6 a.m., trying to do homework from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., Then working again from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. My grades started dropping. Teachers kept asking if everything was okay at home. I just told them I was adjusting to the move. The only good thing about the laundromat job was this homeless guy named Pete, who'd come in most nights. He wasn't like the other weird customers. He showed me how to fix the quarter machine when it got stuck, and taught me which customers were okay to let slide when they were a quarter short. One night Pete tells me, "Kid, you're living life on expert mode right now." Made me laugh for the first time in weeks. He disappeared when winter hit. I still worry about what happened to him sometimes. Uncle Marcus owned the building, but I never saw him there. He had this property management company handle everything. Sometimes I'd see these fancy cars driving real slow late at night. Later found out he'd send people to check on the place. Guess he was watching me more than I knew. Meanwhile, Mom's sending these random texts like, "Hope you're doing well," but never actually picking up when I called her. Instagram was full of pictures from yacht parties and charity galas. Must be nice having so much time for charity when your own kid's working 2 jobs to survive. Aunt Astrid kept finding reasons to raise the rent. Utilities went up. HOA fees increased. Your room is prime real estate. Like, yeah, I'm sure that converted storage room in the basement with the weird mushrooms growing in the corner is really prime Chicago real estate. I started hiding cash in this old teddy bear Dad gave me before he died. Had this whole plan that once I saved enough I'd get my own place. But every time I got close to a decent amount, something would come up. School fees, winter boots when my old ones fell apart. That time Michael accidentally backed his car into mine, and I had to pay for repairs myself. But the final straw came one day when I came home from my gas station shift and found my room completely torn apart. The bear was ripped open. Stuffing everywhere. And guess what? All my savings. Gone. Rebecca swore she was just cleaning and had no idea about any money. Yeah, right. That same week, Aunt Astrid comes down to my basement room and tells me rent's going up again. Not just a little, we're talking double. Said something about property values in the area increasing. I did the math and realized even with both jobs I couldn't afford it anymore. But here's the thing. I'd been taking classes at this community college nearby. Nothing fancy, just basic requirements, trying to get ahead while still in high school. The counselor there said I could maybe get financial aid if I took more classes. That meant I had to make a choice. Keep paying Aunt Astrid's crazy rent, or try to get an education. So I picked education. Didn't really have a plan, I just knew I couldn't stay there anymore. Packed up what could fit in my Toyota. The car had these weird rust spots all over it and the heat only worked if you kicked the dashboard in exactly the right spot. But it was mine. First night sleeping in that car was actually kind of peaceful. Parked behind the laundromat. Used my work keys to sneak in and use the bathroom. Had this whole setup. Reclined the driver's seat all the way back. Used my work backpack as a pillow. Layered like 5 blankets I'd borrowed from the lost and found box. Thought to myself, this isn't so bad. Then winter hit. Real Chicago winter. The kind where your spit freezes before it hits the ground. My car's battery started dying because of the cold, so I couldn't run the heat much. The hardest part wasn't even the cold, or the lack of sleep. It was trying to look normal at school. Like try explaining to your chemistry teacher why your homework's all wrinkled and smells like laundry detergent, or why you're wearing the same 3 outfits over and over. The school counselor kept trying to talk to me, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I live in my car, but don't worry, it's parked in a really nice alley. Then my dear cousin Michael decided to play detective. Guess he got suspicious about why I wasn't around the house anymore. Followed me one night after my laundromat shift. Next day, their TikTok had this whole video series called, My Homeless Cousin, a Documentary. They filmed everything. My frost-covered windows, me trying to study using the light from the laundromat sign. Even catching me changing clothes in the back seat once. The videos went viral in their rich kid circle. People started driving by the laundromat at night, honking their horns, throwing stuff at my car. The cops started coming around more too. Every couple of nights, there'd be a knock on my window. Can't sleep here, miss. So I'd drive around until they left, then come back. Spent a lot of nights just driving in circles, watching my gas gauge get lower and lower, praying I'd have enough to get to work the next day. You know what's weird though? I started noticing this black SUV parked across the street some nights. Always in a different spot, but always there. Tinted windows. Engine running. First I thought it was cops or maybe some creep, but they never bothered me. Just sat there like they were watching. The temperature dropped to -5 degrees Fahrenheit one night. The kind of cold that makes your eyes hurt. My car wouldn't start. The phone was dead, and the laundromat was closed for repairs. Thought, well, this is it. This is how I die. They're going to find me frozen like those rats in the alley. Wrapped myself in every piece of clothing I owned and tried to think warm thoughts. That's when someone knocked on my window. I looked up, and there's Uncle Marcus, standing in the snow like it's totally normal to be out at 2 a.m. in Arctic temperatures. He just goes, "I think we need to talk." Turns out the black SUV, that was his. He'd been watching me through the laundromat security cameras for weeks, sending people to check on me. Said he wanted to see what I was made of. Who does that kind of messed up test? But honestly, at that point I was too cold to care about his weird teaching methods. So there I was, basically turning into a human popsicle in my car. And Uncle Marcus is just standing there in his expensive wool coat, looking at me through the window. I'm thinking he's going to lecture me or call the cops or something. Instead he says, "My office has better heating." Like this is some totally normal situation. His office was this small room above the laundromat I'd never been in before. Turns out he had this whole private space up there. Desk, mini fridge, coffee maker, even a little bathroom. While I'm defrosting my fingers around this cup of actually good coffee, he just sits there watching me like he's trying to solve a puzzle. Finally he goes, "You know, your dad and I used to sleep in a car too." Which, what? I almost dropped my coffee. See, I'd always known Uncle Marcus as this crazy rich real estate guy who wore suits that probably cost more than my car. But then he starts telling me this story I never knew. Apparently he and my dad grew up super poor. Like their mom worked 3 jobs, and they still couldn't afford rent most months, kinda poor. Uncle Marcus pulls out his phone and shows me this ancient photo of 2 skinny teenagers sitting in a van, eating beans straight from the can. "That's your dad on the left," he says. And yeah, same goofy smile I remembered, just on a much younger face. The whole time he's telling me this story, I'm sitting there trying to process it. Like how did they go from homeless teenagers to, well, this? That's when he tells me about the laundromat. The original owner used to let them hang out inside during really cold nights. They'd help him fix machines, clean up, whatever needed doing. When the owner got sick, he offered to sell them the place. Dad had just started college on a scholarship, but Uncle Marcus had been working construction and saving every penny. So the owner sold it to him for basically nothing. That was his first property. Then he starts pulling out all these old documents from his desk. Property deeds, contracts, business plans, all with my dad's notes in the margins. When your dad got sick, Uncle Marcus continues, he made me promise 2 things. First, to look out for you. Second, to make sure you learn how to look out for yourself. Then he gives me this look and goes, "Gotta say, you're doing better at the second part than I expected." I'm sitting there trying not to cry. Failing pretty badly at it, to be honest, when he drops the real surprise. Turns out he owns like half the block around the laundromat now. Apartment buildings, stores, even that sketchy phone repair place. And he's been watching me through the security cameras this whole time, sending his guys in the SUV to keep an eye on me. You worked 2 jobs without complaining. Kept your grades up, found ways to survive that most people wouldn't think of. Even kept that laundromat running better than the manager I hired. He actually smiled when he said that last part. Jerry told me you fixed the quarter machine. Took my maintenance guy 3 tries to figure that out. That's when he pulls out this key. Says it's for the apartment above his office, a whole studio apartment I didn't even know existed. He told me it's mine. No rent, as long as I keep working at the laundromat and keep my grades up. I tried to say no, like this felt too much like charity or something. But he shut that down real quick. This isn't charity. This is an investment. You've got your father's brains. And your own kind of determination. I'm investing in that. Then he shows me this whole file he's kept. Copies of my school records. Work reports from Jerry. Even screenshots of those awful TikToks Michael and Rebecca made. They thought they were shaming you, he says. All I saw was someone who refused to break. It's weird, you know? All this time I thought he was this cold rich guy who didn't care. Who let his wife treat me like garbage. Turns out he was testing me. Messed up way to do it, yeah, but I kind of get it now. He wanted to see if I had what my dad had. That thing that makes you keep going when everything's against you. Before I left his office that night, he said something else about Dad. Told me about their last conversation when Dad was in the hospital. Dad made him swear not to just hand me everything, said I needed to learn to be strong on my own first. But Uncle Marcus added, he also said to know when enough was enough. And kid, you've more than proved yourself. I spent that night in a real bed for the first time in months. The apartment wasn't fancy, just one room with a kitchenette and bathroom, but it was warm, clean, safe. But the morning after Uncle Marcus gave me the apartment, I woke up to my phone blowing up with texts from Aunt Astrid. Turns out Michael had driven by the laundromat on his way to school and saw me walking down from the upstairs apartment. He took pictures, because of course he did. Aunt Astrid shows up at the laundromat during my shift, wearing her designer workout clothes and looking like she's about to explode. Starts screaming about how I'm trying to steal her husband, how I've been seducing him or whatever. Like, yeah, Aunt Astrid, I totally seduced him by being homeless and fixing washing machines. Super sexy. The customers were all staring, and this one old lady who comes in every Wednesday to wash her cat's blankets actually started recording the whole thing on her phone. Aunt Astrid saying all this crazy stuff about how she always knew I was trouble, how I'm just like my mother, trying to take advantage of rich men. I'm just standing there with a mop in my hand, wearing my gross work uniform, thinking, is this really happening right now? Then Jerry comes out from the back room and tells Aunt Astrid she needs to leave before he calls the cops. She leaves, but not before telling me, this isn't over. That night, I heard Astrid and Uncle Marcus having this huge fight upstairs in his office. Their voices were muffled, but I could make out Aunt Astrid screaming about that girl, and how dare you. I felt so ashamed, like I'd ruined their marriage or something. Later Aunt Astrid slept at her friend's house that night. When I saw Uncle Marcus the next morning, he had dark circles under his eyes, and just gave me this tired nod. But the weird thing is that my mom suddenly started calling me, for the first time in months, acting all concerned. Honey, I'm hearing some disturbing things. Like she had any right to be concerned after abandoning me. I'm sure someone, probably Rebecca, sent her the rumors. Then she and Ralph show up at my apartment unannounced. Mom's wearing one of her new designer outfits. Her eyes scan my tiny studio apartment. Oh honey, she says. But it sounds more calculating than concerned. This is quaint. Ralph stays by the door like he's afraid poverty might be contagious. What are you doing here? I asked, not offering them a seat. There's nowhere to sit anyway, unless they want to join me on my unmade bed. Mom starts pacing my tiny space. We've been hearing things about you and your Uncle Marcus. The way she says it makes something twist in my stomach. What about Uncle Marcus? Come on, sweetie. She tries for a conspiratorial smile. I know what you're doing. It's clever, really. I would have never thought of it at your age. Thought of what? Getting close to Marcus like this. Working in his business, playing the poor abandoned niece. I'm sure he's promised you quite a bit. The realization hits me like a slap. You think I'm trying to get his money? Well, aren't you? Living in this place, working in that laundromat, spending all that time with him, it's obvious what you're doing. I laugh, and it comes out harsh. Obvious to who? You? The woman who shipped me off to Chicago and forgot about me? That's not fair. No, you know what's not fair. You disappeared when Dad died. You married Ralph. What, 10 months later? Send me to Aunt Astrid like I was some old furniture that didn't match your new decor. I was grieving, she says. But she's looking at her expensive watch, not at me. You were upgrading, I snapped back. Trading up for a fancier life with your real estate husband and your charity galas. And now what? You're worried I might get some of Uncle Marcus's money before you do? Ralph steps forward then, all fake authority. Now listen here, young lady. Your mother and I are concerned about your welfare. My welfare? The laugh bubbles up again, uglier this time. Where was this concern when Aunt Astrid was charging me rent at 15? When I was working 2 jobs and sleeping in my car? Mom waves her hand dismissively. Don't be dramatic. Astrid would never. Check my hospital records from when I got bronchitis sleeping in that car. Check the pay stubs from the gas station and the laundromat. Check the rent receipts Astrid made me keep. Oh wait, you can't. You were too busy posting pictures from your yacht parties to even answer my calls. That's ancient history, Mom says. But she's fidgeting with her wedding ring. Dad's wedding ring that she had upgraded with bigger diamonds. We're here to help now. Ralph has a friend who runs this wonderful boarding school in Switzerland. Now you want to help? My voice rises. Or did you just find out Uncle Marcus is teaching me about the business? Worried I might actually learn something? Get a piece of what you think should be yours? Mom's face changes then. Gets harder. Drops the concerned mother act completely. Marcus was your father's brother. Anything of his should go to me. His wife, ex-wife, I correct, who remarried less than a year after he died. I deserve, she starts, but I cut her off. You deserve it? Dad helped build this business. He and Uncle Marcus started with nothing, while you were busy planning charity galas with Ralph. I'm learning how to fix washing machines and manage books, and actually help people, just like Dad did. Your father was a teacher, she spits out. He played around with Marcus's business like it was some hobby. Get out. I point to the door. Go back to your perfect life with your perfect husband. Go plan another charity gala. Go archive some more family photos because they don't match your aesthetic. Just get out of my apartment. Ralph tries one more time. Now see here. No, you see here. I'm surprised by how steady my voice is now. I know exactly why you're both here. You heard I was working with Uncle Marcus and got scared. Scared I might actually earn something you think should be yours. But here's the thing. I'm not you. I'm not here for anyone's money. I'm here because Uncle Marcus gave me a chance when you threw me away. Mom's face goes red. How dare you? How dare I? How dare you come here pretending to care about my welfare, when all you care about is your bank account? I walk to the door and open it. By the way, Mom, that pantsuit makes you look desperate. They leave. Mom muttered something about ingratitude, and Ralph was already on his phone. I close the door and slide down against it, shaking. Through the thin walls I hear Mom's voice. I told you this would happen. That little gold digger is going to try to take everything. So after the whole drama with Mom and Ralph showing up, things got weirdly quiet for like a week. I was at work one night when Michael came running into the laundromat. He looked scared. Turns out he was using Aunt Astrid's iPad. A message popped up from someone saved as D that just said, "Everything's ready for next week. Astrid baby, we're finally going to be free." Michael, being the nosy kid he is, opened the messages. Guess Aunt Astrid never logged out of her accounts on that iPad. Y'all. The D was Ralph. As in my Dad Ralph. As in my mom's husband Ralph. They'd been texting for months. Michael found all these emails too. Plans for them to take a bunch of money from Uncle Marcus's business and run away together. They'd been planning it for almost a year. Every time Aunt Astrid raised my rent, that money went straight into some secret account. Michael showed up because he didn't know what to do. For the first time in his life, this kid who'd made fun of me for being poor, was realizing his mom was about to steal everything, and leave him behind. I called Uncle Marcus. Not going to lie. Part of me wanted to just let everything blow up after how they treated me. Would have been some nice karma. Uncle Marcus came down to the laundromat right away. Michael was still shaking when he showed Uncle Marcus all the messages. I've never seen Uncle Marcus look so blank. Like his face just shut down. He made some calls. Turns out his lawyer had been suspicious about some business accounts for a while. The numbers weren't adding up. But Aunt Astrid handled all the paperwork. Uncle Marcus trusted her with everything, so nobody looked too close. The lawyer looked through every account, every transaction. Know how much they were planning to steal? $4.3 million. They'd already moved almost $1 million to offshore accounts. All those times Aunt Astrid complained about property taxes and utility bills? She was stealing that money too. But the real blow. Some of that money came from Michael and Rebecca's college funds. Their own mom was stealing their future to run away with my stepdad. Uncle Marcus had this whole team of lawyers and accountants come in. They found all these fake companies Aunt Astrid had set up. She'd write checks to these companies for maintenance or supplies, but the money just went to more secret accounts. While all this was happening, Aunt Astrid was acting totally normal. Still posting her workout selfies on Instagram, still running her PTA meetings, still pretending to be this perfect mom. Ralph was the same, taking my mom to charity events, buying her expensive stuff. playing the devoted husband. The lawyers said we needed to wait, get more evidence before confronting them. But Rebecca found everything on the iPad too. She came to my apartment one night, mascara all over her face from crying, asking if she could stay with me. First time in her life she didn't have a perfect place to sleep. It was weird having her there. This girl who'd made fun of me for being homeless was now basically homeless herself. She couldn't stand being in the same house as Aunt Astrid after learning everything. She slept on my tiny futon, used my cheap shampoo, wore my Target clothes, kept saying sorry for how she treated me. But honestly, watching her realize money doesn't make you a good person was enough. Uncle Marcus had his IT guys tracking all the accounts, watching every transaction. The plan was to catch them right before they tried to run, but Aunt Astrid must have figured out something was up because she started moving money faster. The next morning was Michael's 18th birthday party. Aunt Astrid had planned this huge thing at their house, hired a DJ, catering, even got some mini golf set up in the backyard. She was acting extra nice to everyone, probably because she thought it was her last weekend there. Uncle Marcus decided that was when we'd confront them. Have all the evidence ready, get everybody in one place. I remember Rebecca asking if we should warn my mom first, but Uncle Marcus said no. We needed to see her genuine reaction to know if she was involved. The morning of Michael's birthday party was weird. Like super weird. Aunt Astrid's running around arranging centerpieces and checking the catering while literally planning to disappear with my stepdad the next day. Rebecca and I were helping set up, both knowing everything was about to explode, trying to act normal. Michael looked like he was going to throw up every time his mom hugged him. Uncle Marcus had this whole plan. His lawyer would show up unexpectedly with some urgent paperwork during the party. They'd gather everyone in the living room and then drop all the evidence. The FBI was actually waiting nearby. Yeah, actual FBI agents. Because apparently stealing millions from legitimate businesses while planning to flee the country is kind of their thing. My mom showed up early, all excited about the party. She hadn't talked to me since the whole Switzerland boarding school thing, but she was acting like everything was fine. Ralph came in behind her carrying this huge wrapped present. Found out later it was some fancy gaming system. Guess he was trying to buy Michael's silence or something. The party started at 2 p.m. All these rich kids from Michael's school showing up in BMWs and Mercedes their parents bought them. The DJ's playing music, people are swimming in the pool. Everything looks completely normal, except Rebecca, Michael and I are just watching Aunt Astrid and Ralph, who keep checking their phones and whispering to each other. Around 4 p.m. the lawyer showed up. He's carrying this thick folder and looking super serious. Aunt Astrid's face when she saw him. I wish I had a picture. She knew. They gathered everyone in the living room. Some of Michael's friends tried to stay, but Uncle Marcus was like, family only, in this voice that made them leave real quick. My mom was complaining about interrupting the party. But then the lawyer started laying out documents on the coffee table. Bank statements, emails, transfer records, pictures of Aunt Astrid and Ralph together from some private investigator. With each paper he put down, the room got quieter. Then he played a recording. Aunt Astrid and Ralph talking about their plans, laughing about how stupid everyone was for not noticing. My mom stopped breathing when she heard Ralph's voice. Just straight up froze. Aunt Astrid tried to say the recording was fake, but then Uncle Marcus pulled out her iPad, the one Michael found the messages on, and started reading their texts out loud. Y'all, the screaming that happened next. Mom launched herself at Ralph, started hitting him with her purse, which had like a million metal things in it, BTW. Aunt Astrid tried to run for the door, but the FBI guys were already there. Some agent lady just goes, Astrid Anderson, you're under arrest for wire fraud and embezzlement. They took them both away in handcuffs. Ralph kept yelling about how he had a good explanation. Aunt Astrid was crying about how weed ruined her life. But you know what the worst part was? Neither of them even looked at their kids. Like your son's 18th birthday party just got turned into a crime scene, and you can't even say sorry? Mom had a complete breakdown, like full-on hysterics. Turns out Ralph had been using her money too. She'd signed a bunch of papers without reading them, because she trusted him, she said, and he'd basically stolen everything she had left from Dad's life insurance. The next few weeks were crazy. The FBI investigation found even more stuff. Aunt Astrid and Ralph had been planning this for over a year. They had fake passports, offshore accounts, this whole secret life ready to go. They'd stolen from pretty much everyone, the business, the kids' college funds, even charity money from those fancy events they were always going to. While all this was happening, Uncle Marcus was watching how everyone handled it. Rebecca and Michael basically moved into my tiny apartment. We had this whole system. Michael slept on the futon, Rebecca shared my bed, and we all shared one bathroom. Which was interesting. They both got jobs at the laundromat. Rebecca's actually really good with customers when she's not being mean to them. And Michael? Kids have a talent for fixing machines. He figured out this problem with the industrial dryer that even the repair guy couldn't fix. Mom went to rehab. Not for drugs or anything, just to deal with everything. She'd been so focused on looking perfect, having the perfect rich life, that she'd ignored all the red flags about Ralph. Uncle Marcus really stepped up. He's been teaching us all about the business. Says he wants us, me, Rebecca, and Michael, to run it together someday. We each have different strengths. I'm good with numbers, like my dad was. Rebecca's great with people when she tries, and Michael's got this weird genius thing with machines. Last week we all went to visit Dad's grave. First time we'd been there together. Uncle Marcus told us more stories about him, about how he'd helped build this whole business while still being a teacher, because he believed in helping people. Aunt Astrid and Ralph are in jail now. Turns out stealing millions and planning to flee the country is kind of illegal. They're both trying to blame each other, which would be funny if it wasn't so sad. Michael and Rebecca still struggle with it. Like, imagine finding out your mom cared more about running away with someone else's husband than she did about you. But you know what's weird? We're actually better now. Like, all of us. Mom's dealing with her issues instead of hiding them behind designer sunglasses. Rebecca and Michael learned what it's like to actually work for things. I learned that sometimes letting people help you isn't a weakness. Sometimes I look around at my life now and can't believe how different everything is from a year ago. Like, I'm sitting here in the laundromat office. My office now. I manage the place. And it hits me. Although I lost my family, I'm doing much better now. TLDR. Found out aunt and stepdad were secret lovers planning to steal millions and run away. They got arrested at a birthday party. Mom had a breakdown, went to rehab. Cousins learned humility through laundry. And we all somehow became a real family. Also, Dad was playing 4D chess from beyond the grave. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Mom rejected my daughter. On Christmas Eve, told she wasn't real family. Weeks later, the IRS raided her mansion. Now she's bankrupt, begging me back. My parents presented gifts to everyone but my kid. With tears in her eyes, she asked, "Grandma, do you hate me?" My mother smirked and remarked, "Gifts are reserved for children who deserve them. Your AER's child is a true family member." I simply responded, "I understand. We'll never speak again," and walked away. However, days later, my parents stood in front of me, crying. In a calm residential neighborhood of Greenwich, Connecticut, the Bradley Mansion stood out amid the white colonial-style residences. The well-kept front yard was brimming with seasonal flowers, and the stone road up to the entry oozed movie scene grandeur. This mansion, valued at $2,500,000, had served as the Bradley family's residence for more than 30 years. In that yard, a young girl was watering the flowers. Sophie Bennett, 8, was in second grade at St. Mary's Elementary School. Her kind, dark eyes and attentive demeanor allure her to the grown-ups around her. She was stopping by her grandparents' house after school, as she usually did. The neighbors observed with pleasure as the little girl cared for the garden day after day. "Sophie, thank you for watering the flowers for Grandma." Emma Bennett, Sophie's mother, spoke from the entrance. At 35, she was the director of research and development for a major pharmaceutical company. Despite her soft disposition, she retained inner strength and had adopted Sophie 8 years ago. She also took on the burden of paying her parents $3,000 monthly rent and medical insurance. Her relationship with her parents remained strained when she chose not to inherit the family real estate firm, but she did not regret her decision. "Mom, I made Grandpa's favorite cookies today. Mrs. Johnson taught me the recipe." Sophie proudly exhibited a paper bag containing the pleasant aroma of chocolate chip cookies. Cooking classes with her elderly neighbor had suddenly become her favorite activity. "Oh, very nice. Grandpa will be very thrilled." Emma's husband Michael stood next to her as she grinned. At the age of 37, he owned an IT company that provided a steady income of more than $300,000 per year for his family. He had always backed his wife's decisions, remembering their commitment to walk together through life at their wedding at St. Mary's Church. Inside the house, Robert and Diana were reading documents in the sitting room. Bradley Real Estate's proprietors were continually concerned about the company's future. Passing on their $5 million annual revenue business to the next generation was their greatest life problem. The succession dilemma kept these two, who prized tradition and appearances, awake at night. Their youngest daughter, Caitlin, bore the brunt of these expectations. Despite her showy and arrogant demeanor, she had earned her parents' trust after switching from law to accounting for the family firm. Even after her divorce, she poured herself into work, determined to match her parents' expectations. Caitlin's 7-year-old son Jacob attended Greenwich Academy, the most prestigious private school in Greenwich. Though he was sheltered from having to live up to his grandparents' expectations, this could have been due to undue pressure from others. "Mother, please check the new contracts." The business meeting at LaCale went well. Diana began examining the documents Caitlin had handed her. Even in the digital age, both parents preferred physical documents. Caitlin smiled, accepting her parents' traditional ways. Nobody recognized the underlying reasons behind that smile. As nightfall approached, the light through the windows became softer. Sophie had finished watering the last of the garden flowers with a contented look. Neighborhood housewives returning from Whole Foods Market greeted her warmly. Emma felt a peaceful contentment as she observed her daughter. In December, Ganesh was decorated with Christmas lights. At the Bradley mansion, preparations for a big party were underway. Antique decorations tastefully covered the Christmas tree that reached the living room ceiling, while hereditary stockings hung above the fireplace. "Grandma, can I also hang this wreath?" Sophie gently handled her homemade wreath from St. Mary's Church's Christmas workshop. It had a modest elegance, accented with ribbons and pine cones. "Yes, let's hang it at the entrance," Diana said dismissively as she examined the arrangement of pricey decorations acquired from luxury department stores. She felt a twinge of remorse at Sophie's innocent grin, but immediately brushed it aside. As darkness fell, family members began to arrive. Emma and Michael arrived carrying expensive wine from Whole Foods. Caitlin appeared with Jacob in tow, bearing armfuls of brightly wrapped gifts. "Merry Christmas." Sophie greeted everyone at the door and distributed handcrafted Christmas cards. The cards conveyed gratitude for the last year and childish penmanship. Those remarks encompassed 365 days of a little girl's affection, including daily visits, flower care, and cookie baking. Robert sat in the sitting room, staring at the fireplace and examining the company's financial records. He occasionally displayed anxious expressions, but tonight was a family dinner celebration. He decided to postpone business issues until tomorrow. "Should we have dinner?" Diana's speech drew the family together around the beautiful dinner table. Under the crystal chandelier, colorful dishes were displayed: roast turkey, handmade gratin, and seafood salad. Desserts ordered at the premium eatery, Lascaux, also drew attention to the table. "What a wonderful dinner again this year, Mother." Diana nodded with satisfaction as Caitlin spoke. Jacob was chatting eagerly with her about his latest gaming console. Beside them, Sophie ate her supper quietly, expecting the gift exchange. After supper, it was time to exchange presents. The entire family gathered around the fireplace. Under the tree, a mound of colorfully wrapped presents had accumulated. "Let's start with Jacob." At Robert's signal, the present exchange began. Jacob's presents were revealed one by one: the latest gaming system, luxury brand children's clothing, and an educational tablet. Cheers erupted with each opening. Sophie waited her turn, her heart filled with anticipation for her grandparents' gifts. Daily visits, time spent together, shared smiles. Grandpa and Grandma must. However, as gifts were handed one after another, Sophie's name was never mentioned. The mood in the room became increasingly thick over time. Emma's visage stiffened, and Michael detected an uneasy atmosphere. "Grandma?" A little voice resonated through the still room. Sophie's eyes glistened with large tears. "Do you hate me?" The shaky voice froze the room's mood. Caitlin smiled meaningfully, while Jacob was engaged on his new game console, uninterested. Just as Emma moved to approach her kid, Diana's harsh voice rang out, "Presents are for deserving children." Diana continued, taking a sip of tea and smiling elegantly. "My sister's child is a real family after all." Those words cut through the room like ice knives. Emma's face became drained of blood. Michael clenched his hand tight. Only the clock's ticking signaled the deep silence. The fireplace flames flickered, creating spooky dancing shadows on the walls. Outside the window, Christmas snow had started to fall silently. "I understand," Emma said in a strangely calm voice. "We'll never be involved again." Emma got up and carefully lifted the sobbing Sophie. Michael held his wife and daughter's shoulders as the three walked softly to the entrance. "Emma, please wait," Robert called out. Unfortunately, it was too late. The hefty closing of the door marked the end of the night. Outside, the snow was becoming heavier. Car headlights lit the white snow. In the back seat, Sophie clutched her homemade card with shaky hands. The words, "To my beloved grandma," remained tenderly written there. Greenwich was still buzzing with Christmas festivities. Hymns streamed from St. Mary's Church, and warm light filtered through the windows of residences. However, the Bennett family's automobile was completely silent. Michael used the rear-view mirror to sometimes check at his daughter in the back seat. Emma gazed forward in quiet, fiercely grasping her husband's hand. The morning of December arrived with a gloomy atmosphere hovering over the Bennett family's dining table. Emma and Michael had spent the entire night talking about how to move forward. Sophie was still sleeping upstairs. "I've decided," Emma said quietly but decisively. "I'm stopping all support to my parents." Michael softly grasped his wife's hand. They had been paying her parents $3,000 in monthly rent support and high medical insurance costs. The entire amount topped $50,000 per year. "I agree. Your parents took this support for granted." Grace Bennett, Michael's mother, called and urged him to make this decision. As president of the St. Mary's Church Women's Association, she learned of yesterday night's events from neighbors and promptly contacted them. "There's no reason to stay in that house. Please use our vacation home." Grace's holiday home, located slightly distant from Greenwich's elite residential area, provided a quiet and peaceful environment. Emma's family benefited greatly from her offer. Emma visited with accountant Tom Watson that afternoon to discuss withdrawing support for her parents. Tom was a longtime buddy who recognized Bradley Real Estate's financial condition. Maintenance expenses have increased dramatically over the past 6 months, and the flow of some contract payments seems unnatural. Emma gazed at the documents with her father's signature. Knowing her father's careful temperament, something about the signature seemed odd. Meanwhile, Sophie naturally began to avoid visiting her grandparents' place. On her way home from St. Mary's Elementary School, she passed by their house, which she used to visit every day. The garden flowers faded gradually. As January arrived, the community was engulfed in bitter cold. Emma's family had started their new life at Grace's holiday home. Sophie meticulously nurtured a new flower bed in the vast garden, and Grace would pay her a visit on weekends to enjoy gardening with her. "Grandma, do you think these rose seedlings will bloom in the spring?" Grace smiled kindly in response to Sophie's question. "They'll surely bloom beautifully just like you." Her wounded heart began to heal gradually. However, worrisome suspicions began to circulate among the Bradley family. Sarah Johnson, a nearby resident, considered Caitlin's recent conduct strange. "That girl went shopping in New York again last week. She purchased several new luxury brand bags." Many locals were drawn to her opulent lifestyle, despite the fact that she worked as the family's accountant. In February, Jim Clark, a Bradley real estate veteran, requested an early retirement. His abrupt decision, made after more than 30 years of service, caused chaos within the organization. "Something's wrong," Michael's legal advisor David Stern stated. "There are rumors in the real estate industry about unclear transactions at Bradley Real Estate." As March began, more worrying developments emerged. One day, Emma got a letter. The sender was Martha Collins, Bradley Real Estate's former accounting director. "Miss, I need to speak with your father." In the letter, Martha expressed major concerns about the company's accounting methods. Since Miss Caitlin took over accounting, there have been increasing transactions I cannot verify. Emma drove to her parents' house to check on her father the day after she read the letter. She saw unfamiliar individuals in suits visiting the company. Morning media announced that a tax inquiry on Bradley Real Estate had begun. Authorities initiated a large-scale inquiry in response to an internal whistleblower claim. Emma, something terrible has happened. Michael's contact at the tax office had called him first thing in the morning. There's strong suspicion your sister has embezzled about $5 million over the past 3 years. That afternoon, Caitlin vanished from the firm. Mom. Caitlin left without saying anything. Emma held her breath after receiving Diana's panicked phone call. Her sister had taken out a significant quantity of money and disappeared, leaving behind her 7-year-old kid, Jacob. As the investigation progressed, stunning revelations emerged one by one. Moving real estate contract payments to secret accounts, inflating maintenance charges and pocketing the difference, freely using corporate seals and bank books, by abusing her parents' confidence, and entirely managing internet banking by leveraging her elderly parents' digital illiteracy. Caitlin was stopped by police at JFK International Airport on Friday evening, as she attempted to exit the country. Why? Why would she do that? Robert held his head in his hands at the police station. The company's reputation was in ruins, and total liabilities could surpass $10 million. Diana broke down in tears at home. Outside the window, the flowers Sophie had once cared for swung sadly, untouched. Emma quietly watched the news in Grace's vacation home living room. Michael was helping police with their digital forensic investigation. That night, Sophie penned a little prayer in her diary. Please don't let Mom be sad, and please don't let Jacob be lonely. Caitlin Bradley quietly confesses to her misdeeds in the interview chamber at the Greenwich police station. Her voice lacked the bravado it formerly possessed. Her fancy brand suit had been replaced with police-issued work clothing, and her flawless makeup had faded. As the investigation progressed, more alarming truths emerged. The first fraud started 3 years ago. Caitlin began embezzling little amounts following her divorce, as she struggled to pay alimony. However, her subsequent addiction to a luxury lifestyle led to more serious crimes. Of the $3 million in contract payments from business partners, $500,000 was directed to private accounts. The investigators quietly took notes on her testimony. Meanwhile, in Bradley Real Estate's headquarters, the corporation faced its most serious problem since its inception. At this rate, we'll have to let go of all properties, James Foster, designated as bankruptcy trustee, said sternly. Employees exchanged concerned looks. Amidst this, an unexpected development occurred. Mrs. Johnson, who lived close, turned in an album to the police. It was a collection of images depicting Sophie's regular activities. That child came to their house every day. The collection contains precisely dated images of Sophie maintaining her garden, baking cookies with her parents, and attending her grandparents to hospital visits. She never missed a day, regardless of the weather. Next, security camera footage was examined. There are records of visits for 367 days straight, without missing a single day, the police technician stated. Even on New Year's Eve, and when she had a fever from the flu, Sophie always went to her grandparents' house. The St. Mary's Church Women's Association also provided testimonials. Every Sunday after Mass, Sophie would pray for them, Pastor Michael O'Connor explained quietly. She would always say, "Please let Grandpa and Grandma stay healthy." It was like an angel's pure prayer. On the morning of April 20th, Robert and Diana went to Grace's holiday home. The two appeared more weary than ever before. Their pricey suits had been replaced by more modest casual clothes, and Diana's rings vanished. "Emma, we need to talk to you," Robert told his daughter through tears. "We made a terrible mistake." Diana continued with a shaky voice. "That child's, Sophie's, unconditional love. We trampled on it." The two began to speak openly about their enormous expectations for Caitlin, their fixation with bloodlines, their anxiety over the company's succession, and, most importantly, their folly in failing to recognize the genuine gem lying in front of their eyes. Diana sobbed. "She came every day, yet we just let ourselves be led by Caitlin's words." As Emma listened, complex feelings swirled in her chest, including rage, despair, and a weird sensation of liberty. At that point, little footsteps were heard upstairs. "Grandpa? Grandma?" Sophie descended the stairs, still wearing her school uniform. For a brief moment, the room's atmosphere became frozen. However, Sophie's next move surpassed everyone's expectations. She walked directly to her grandparents and tenderly embraced them with her small arms. "Do not cry. I'd like to forgive you." At that point, the room was completely silent. In the kitchen, Grace discreetly touched her fingertips to her eyes. Michael sighed deeply as he stared out the window. Emma calmly made her decision while resting her palm on her daughter's back. "Dad, Mom, let's talk about what happens from here on. All of us together." Soft spring sunlight shone into the room. Outside the window, the flowers Sophie had planted were gently starting to bloom, signaling the start of a new season. That evening, Emma spoke privately with her mother-in-law, Grace. "I support your decision," Grace, who had kept a close eye on the situation, said gently. "But from now on, let us help too." The conversation about creating a new type of family lasted until late into the night. Emma met with lawyer David Stern the following day to make clear arrangements for the future. "It will take a team of professionals to reconstruct the company. Rebuilding is achievable thanks to your experience and connections." Emma nodded gently as David spoke. Her work at the pharmaceutical company may help revive the family business in unforeseen ways. Then Caitlin faced her first trial. A gloomy aura pervaded the courtroom. "The defendant is hereby sentenced to 7 years in prison." As the judge's voice boomed out, Caitlin bowed deeply. Her son, Jacob, had already started a new life with his divorced father. Caitlin left Emma one message as she left the courtroom. "Sis, I'm truly sorry." For the first time, her comments had the ring of genuine regret. In the evening, Emma's family and parents gathered on the terrace of Grace's holiday house. "It's a new beginning," Grace explained as she served warm tea. Sophie was watering her newly planted flowers. Her figure resembled a symbol of hope. "We still have so much to make amends for," Robert added. Everyone nodded softly as he spoke. Greenwich was once again decorated with Christmas lights. Grace's holiday home had changed dramatically during the last year. The former reception area had been transformed into a family living space, and seasonal flowers flourished throughout the lawn. "Can I help decorate the tree, Mom?" Sophie gently held the new ornaments. The phrases "gratitude to family" were meticulously carved on these decorations created by St. Mary's Church workshops. "Of course. Let us decorate together before Grandma and Grandpa arrive." Emma lovingly touched her daughter's hair. Sophie had become even friendlier over the course of the past year. Meanwhile, Robert and Diana's life had shifted considerably. Their lavish lifestyle had faded after they were forced to relocate from their spacious estate in an upmarket neighborhood to a tiny apartment. Repaying the debt was just partly complete. Diana had learned new ideas from their modest lifestyle. She began volunteering at St. Mary's Church every Wednesday, and these experiences progressively influenced her values. The value of things, and the value of the heart, are different. Her words conveyed profound reflection and new knowledge. Robert resumed his desperate efforts to revive the company. They were working with Emma to build a new management system. Though the total debt remained large, they were beginning to see a road to payback. "I'm truly grateful for your management skills," he informed her. He was finally recognizing the significance of his daughter's existence. Emma was using her pharmaceutical industry skills to help the company digitize and overhaul its management system. Michael also provided his IT company's experience in developing a new real estate administration system. Employees saw optimism in the couple's collaborative efforts to revive the family firm. Grace kept a close eye on this new family structure. "Forgiving those you love sometimes takes the greatest courage." Her remarks struck a profound chord with the entire household. The monthly family gathering on the first Sunday had also become a new custom. Though there were disagreements from time to time, they also served as chances to strengthen family bonds. "Next month, I'd like to start a new initiative," Robert suggested. He planned to contribute a portion of the company's income to an adoption support fund. "I want to give back to society what we learned from Sophie." Emma's eyes were hot at those remarks. Caitlin worked hard on her rehabilitation program while in prison. During her parents' visits, she made a real apology for the first time. My greed and jealousy destroyed our family. Through counseling, she had begun to confront the true nature of her behavior. Her son Jacob lived a steady life with his father. His previously privileged nature had vanished, and he was slowly opening his heart in the new atmosphere. "Can I go see him occasionally?" Sophie's casual words touched the entire household. A child's pure heart taught them the value of forgiving. Sophie had planned a unique gift for this occasion: a handmade photo album. It carefully documented recollections from the previous year, including images of moving day, church volunteer activities, family gatherings, and gardening. "I want to make lots more memories." Everyone smiled softly at Sophie's comments. At dusk, the entire family started preparing Christmas supper. Though not as lavish as last year's feast, the table was decked with warm foods prepared with everyone's care. "Let us pray," Grace requested. Everyone silently closed their eyes. "Lord, thank you for giving us awareness and forgiving hearts." The sound of amen resonated silently around the room. Outside the window, light snow had started to fall. "Look." Everyone turned to gaze out the window as Sophie spoke. Small lights lighted the garden's planted trees. Michael had planned a covert Christmas surprise. Diana said, "It's like a starry sky," as she looked at the sight. There was a heartwarming beauty there that could not be compared to the previous lavish displays. "Let's create new family traditions together from now on," she remarked. Everyone nodded as she spoke. The perfume of Grace's cooked apple pie filled the air. The family's expressions around the table were tranquil and happy. Nobody could have predicted such a lovely scene a year ago. "So this is what true happiness is," Robert said quietly, acknowledging Diana's whisper. Their expressions combined deep grief with the glimmer of new optimism. From this point forward, the Bradley and Bennett families were going to take a new step. It was the start of a lengthy road to mend broken hearts and rekindle genuine friendships. Sophie stood by the window, watching the snowfall. The light reflected in her little eyes shone softly and steadily, like hope for the future. "My aunt tried selling my late mom's $430,000 house while I lived in it. So I made her regret it, by hiring a lawyer, and it to court." Original post. So this just happened a few weeks ago and I'm still kind of stunned. A little background before we get into the absolute insanity that was my aunt trying to steal my home out from under me. Yes, my literal home. Buckle up. I, 23F, grew up in a quiet town in Oregon in a cozy 2-story house that my mom bought when I was 5. It wasn't huge, but it had this crooked fence, a lemon tree that never grew lemons, and the best kitchen window view of the valley. My dad passed away when I was 6, car accident. And it was just me and my mom after that. She was my best friend, my entire emotional support system, and honestly the reason I'm as stable as I am today. She passed away from cancer about a year and a half ago. Still hurts to say that out loud. But before she died, she made it crystal clear. This house would be mine. She had the will written up properly, notarized, filed. No questions. She even walked me through it when she first got sick. "So no one tries anything stupid," she said. Well, someone tried something extremely stupid. Janice is my mom's older sister. If passive-aggressive narcissist were a profession, she'd be CEO. She always had this thing about being the oldest, like it gave her some divine right to run the show. My mom used to say, "Janice lives in a world where everyone owes her rent." When my mom passed, Janice showed up at the funeral wearing sunglasses indoors, full black lace, and a dramatic story about how they were just starting to reconnect. Please. My mom hadn't spoken to her more than twice in the last 3 years, and both times were because Janice randomly showed up at her chemo appointments like some sad attempt at penance. Anyway, after the funeral, I moved back into the house. I'd been living in a campus apartment, but dropped out for a semester to handle estate stuff and breathe. It was quiet. Sad. But it was mine. I worked at a nearby bookstore, paid the bills, and maintained the garden the best I could. Slowly I started healing. Until Janice came back. 3 months ago I started getting weird mail. Letters addressed to current resident with things like, "We're interested in buying your property," or "Quick sale, no hassle." Stuff I assumed was just normal real estate spam. But then I got a packet from some place called Keller Cromwell Holdings, with my address listed as under negotiation. And stapled to the back? A goddamn signed agreement with Janice's name on it. She was trying to sell my house. I honestly thought it was a scam. I even called the number listed on the paperwork pretending to be a buyer. Some real estate assistant answered and said Janice was the point of contact, and that she had inherited the property through family transfer. Y'all. First saw. Read. I pulled out the will. The original one. It clearly says the house was left solely to me, with Janice explicitly excluded as a beneficiary, due to a history of exploitative behavior. I'm not kidding. That's literally what it says. My mom was cold with the pen, so I did what every modern woman raised on Reddit and petty justice does. I called my mom's lawyer. He still remembered her and immediately scheduled a meeting. I brought everything. The mail, the signed agreement, the will. He read it, raised an eyebrow and said, "Oh. She's dumber than I thought." Turns out Janice had forged a family transfer claim using a fake addendum to the will, dated after my mom's death. Let me say that again. After my mom's death. This woman used a Word template, printed it on cheap legal paper, and tried to pass it off as a legitimate document. She even signed it as my mom, with a pen color that didn't match the original will ink, and using the wrong last name. My mom had legally changed it back to her maiden name after my dad died. Janice forgot that part. Instead of calling her out, I decided to wait. See, the house wasn't just emotionally mine, it was legally and publicly mine. The title transfer had been done. But Janice clearly hadn't bothered checking with the county clerk. She probably thought I was some grieving kid she could steamroll over and that the dumb niece wouldn't know how to respond. She had no idea I was preparing a legal trap. She showed up one Sunday morning with a man in khakis and a clipboard. She didn't even knock. I was on the porch, watering plants, and she just waltzed up like she owned the place. Janice. We're just doing a quick walkthrough. Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. Me. Excuse me? Janice, smiling like a psychopath. Oh honey, don't worry, I'm negotiating a good deal. You'll get your share. Your share. In my house. The clipboard guy looked uncomfortable. Janice said you were a tenant. I handed him my ID and said, I'm not a tenant, I'm the owner. And if you don't leave my property in the next 30 seconds, I'm calling the cops for trespassing. He left. Fast. Janice, though, stood her ground. Janice. You're making a mistake, kid. Your mother would have wanted us to share the house. You don't even have the capacity to manage it. I said, you're right. She would have wanted to share, with people who treated her with respect. That doesn't include you. She stormed off, muttering about legal action, and how this isn't over. 2 days later, I got served with a cease and desist letter from her lawyer cousin, who I later found out specializes in DUI cases in Nevada, LMAO. He claimed wrongful occupancy and demanded I vacate the home or face a civil suit. My lawyer laughed. We sent a certified letter back with the original will, property deed, and a reminder that filing fraudulent documents is a felony. He ghosted us after that. But I wasn't done. Update 1. My aunt tried to sell my house. So I didn't expect this story to blow up the way it did. Thank you to everyone who commented, messaged, and shared legal memes with me. You guys are the reason I didn't second guess myself when I walked straight into full petty mode. Anyway, let's talk about what happened after Janice brought in her clipboard clown and tried to negotiate a good deal on my dead mom's house. Spoiler alert, things got wild. After the whole porch invasion, I realized I had an opportunity to go full lawful petty. I didn't just want to shut her down, I wanted it to sting. Like, cry in the car sting. So I went to the county records office, took a half day off work, wore my best I'm the main character hoodie, and printed out every single document related to the house. Original title transfer will with notarization stamp, the trust paperwork. And my personal favorite, the notice of intent to sell document. Janice filed with Keller Cromwell Holdings using a forged signature and an invalid claim of heirship. I brought them to my lawyer, who immediately said, "Oh, this is better than expected." Turns out filing forged real estate paperwork with the intention to profit from someone else's property? Yeah, that's fraud. Potentially a Class C felony in Oregon. Now Janice had been trying to sell the house quietly. The real estate firm was shady, but technically legit. So I wrote a little email, BCC'd every agent at the brokerage, included PDFs of all the legal documents, and a note that said, "Hi, it's come to my attention that a sale is being negotiated on my legally owned property without my consent. The woman you've been speaking to, Janice, redacted, has no legal claim to the home, and any transaction will be considered fraudulent. I've attached full proof of ownership and a scanned affidavit from my lawyer. If any further action is taken on this listing, I'll be pursuing criminal charges. Kindly, the actual owner." Within 24 hours, I got an apologetic email from the firm's legal team saying they had dropped Janice as a client. That wasn't even the best part. They sent her a formal cease and desist. I know. Never feed the trolls. But I needed to hit Janice where it hurt. And where does a 50-something passive-aggressive narcissist live emotionally? Facebook. She had already started spinning her version of events online. My niece is confused. My sister would have wanted us to share. Grieving kids shouldn't handle real estate. Blah blah victim narrative. So I took a screenshot of her post. Then I posted a comment thread beneath it with a screenshot of the title deed with my name, a copy of the will where my mom excluded her by name, and a simple caption that read, "Mom didn't want you near the house when she was alive. Why would she want you in it now? Y'all." It blew upper. Her post went from 38 likes to absolute silence. Her wine aunt friends stopped commenting. Her MLM girlies untagged her from Boss Babe photos. And her Bible study group leader actually liked my comment. Turns out forged documents don't just magically disappear. My lawyer, shout out to Shelby the legal queen, had forwarded everything to the local district clerk's office. And someone there took it very seriously. Enter Investigator Cardenas. He called me personally, asked for the originals, said there were discrepancies that warranted escalation. I handed over the forged document Janice submitted, and he whistled when he saw the signature. Why? Because she misspelled my mom's middle name on her own fake will. Imagine being that lazy and that bold. Okay, so this part wasn't planned. My friend Jen works for a local news station, small-time segment, mostly feel-good stuff. She saw my Facebook post and messaged me. Want to tell your story? This stuff happens more than people think. I said yes. We filmed a short piece. Local woman fights back against family fraud after mother's death. I wore the same hoodie I confronted Janice in. Jen blurred the addresses and names, but the story was unmistakably ours. The best part? The segment aired on the same night Janice was hosting a virtual grief healing circle on Zoom. Multiple people messaged her about the story in real time. She rage quit the call. After the news story aired, Janice tried one last move. She emailed me personally. It started with, "You didn't have to humiliate me like that." Oh yes I did. Then she begged me not to press charges, said she was confused and acting out of grief, and wanted to keep the house in the family. I forwarded the email to Investigator Cardenas. He thanked me and said it would be very helpful. Haven't heard from Janice since. But according to my cousin, her son, she's planning to move somewhere with better energy. Which I assume means a 2-bedroom apartment with no porch and no lemon tree. Final update. My aunt tried to sell my house. Now she can't even rent one. Hey Reddit. I didn't think this story would stretch into a trilogy, but apparently karma moves in chapters. Since so many of you asked for closure, and because the final domino just fell, here's the conclusion to the story of how my aunt tried to steal the home my mom left me, and how I made sure she lost everything but her fake designer bags. Spoiler alert. I'm writing this from the porch. The lemon tree is finally blooming. And yes, Janice is gone. Roughly 3 weeks after I exposed Janice's forged documents and shut down her little family transfer fantasy, I got a call from Investigator Cardenas. He didn't sound like he was just following up. He sounded pleased. The district attorney had reviewed everything. The will, the house deed, the forged documents, the messages, even the real estate listing paperwork she filed using my dead mother's name, incorrectly, I might add. She used mom's married name, even though she legally changed it back to her maiden name 10 years ago. Amateur hour. And with that, they officially filed charges. Forgery of legal documents. Filing false real estate claims, attempted property fraud. Each one carries its own weight, but together, The DA's office saw a pattern of malicious and deceptive intent. Janice was given a court date. Her name was posted on the public docket. I didn't have to lift a finger after that. The law was doing its thing. All I did was watch it unfold, like front row seats to the downfall of a woman who thought she could outsmart both blood and paper. About a week before her court date, Janice sent me an email. The subject line was, "We need to talk, please." I shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity always gets the best of me. Inside, she rambled for 5 paragraphs. Started with, "You didn't have to humiliate me like this." Then spiraled into gaslighting. "I was just trying to keep the house and the family. You're too young to understand legacy. Your mother and I made peace before she died. You weren't there." Oh, but I was there. Every step of my mom's last months. Every appointment. Every chemo session. Every quiet moment she cried into my shoulder and said, "Please don't let her near this house when I'm gone." So no, Janice. You don't get to rewrite history. Not in my inbox. I didn't respond. I forwarded the email to Investigator Cardenas. He replied with a simple, "Thank you. This supports the timeline and demonstrates clear intent." Mic drop. Remember how I did that segment for a small local station? Turns out someone from Janice's wine club saw it. Word got around. Janice's MLM team started backing away. Her group chat got quiet. She was removed as the admin of her grief support Facebook page. And when she showed up to her women's prayer brunch, someone had swapped out her seat marker with one that said, Jezebel. My cousin, her son, told me she came home crying and threatened to sue the church for defamation. He reminded her that's not how church works. She then tried to move in with him and his wife. Lasted less than 48 hours. She complained about the lighting, demanded they let her use their Netflix, and told their 3-year-old not to touch her vintage purse, which is just a peeling Coach bag she got from a thrift shop. They dropped her off at a motel and blocked her number. After getting kicked out of her lake house, a friend's summer home she was squatting in for a year, Janice tried to float between acquaintances. But no one wanted to touch a woman facing charges for property fraud. She ended up renting a single room above a laundromat in a strip mall an hour outside town. I know this because she complained on her Facebook before deleting the whole account. She now shares a bathroom with 2 chain smokers and a guy named Todd who sells essential oils and bootleg DVDs. Not that I'm keeping tabs. I totally am. Peace. Glorious, uninterrupted peace. The porch is clean. The passive-aggressive sticky notes are gone. The scent of fake lavender candles has been replaced by fresh air and a single eucalyptus diffuser that I picked. I turned Janice's old guest room into a reading nook. Painted it sage green, put in a comfy armchair, added shelves for all the books I've been meaning to read. Hung a neon sign that says, "This house belongs to me." And the best part? The attic. While organizing boxes, I found an old shoebox tucked behind a beam. Inside, a stack of photos, a tiny ceramic owl I made in 3rd grade, and a letter. For Ruby, when you're ready. It was my mom's handwriting. Faded but clear. She talked about how proud she was of me. How she knew Janice might come circling like a vulture. How she put everything in my name so I'd never have to fight to keep what was already mine. She wrote about the garden, the lemon tree, and how, even if I ever felt alone, the house would always be a piece of her, rooted, standing, and watching over me. The last line. "Don't let anyone make you small in the place you were born to grow," I cried. The ugly kind of cry. The healing kind. And then I folded the letter, framed it, and put it right above the reading chair. So I see it every day. We're not close. He and my mom split when I was 10, and he moved to Arizona with his new wife. But he saw the news segment. Called me out of the blue. Said, "Your mom would be proud. I am too. Sorry I wasn't around more." Then he Venmo'd me $500 with a note, for porch lights or revenge snacks. I used it to buy a standing lamp for the reading room, and an espresso machine. Felt like a good combo. Janice took a plea deal. 2 years probation, $7,500 fine, mandatory counseling for impulse control and deceitful behavior. Public apology to me, which I didn't require, but it was the judge's condition. She didn't look at me in court. But I looked right at her. And I smiled. The lemon tree is blooming for the first time in 6 years. The porch feels bigger. The house feels warmer. And I feel lighter. No more pretending. No more walking on eggshells. Just peace, books, coffee, and the quiet strength of a girl who stood her ground and kept the ground under her feet. If you're going through something similar, please know, you are not powerless. Paper trails, truth, and a calm sense of self go a long way. And if you're lucky, Reddit will have your back too. Thanks for following the saga. I've got a life to live now, in my house. And Janice. Well, last I heard, she's selling fake crystals on Etsy under the name Healing Empress 43. So, I think we both ended up exactly where we belong. Thanks for watching and being part of the drama. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a wild news story. Parents' favored sister ignored my achievements. They never said, "We're proud of you." Now they're watching another man proudly calls me his son. Original post. I, 29 male, grew up in a house where I was useful, but never loved. That might sound melodramatic to some, but it's the truth. I wasn't the kid who got hugs for scraped knees or gold stars on the fridge. I was the kid who got asked why the dishwasher wasn't unloaded yet. From the age of 10, I became less of a child, and more of a default housekeeper. I cooked dinner at least 3 times a week. I was folding laundry before I hit middle school. Scrubbing baseboards, mowing lawns, doing grocery runs. These were just assumed to be mine. No allowance. No thanks. No acknowledgement. Meanwhile, my younger sister Ellie, 26 female, lived in a different reality. She was their miracle baby, born after a long battle with infertility. I was the oops that happened 3 years before they were ready. Ellie never had chores. She never got in trouble. She got new clothes, expensive lessons, constant praise. I got sighs and side eyes. If Ellie cried, my mom dropped everything to comfort her. If I cried, my dad told me to man up. If Ellie failed a test, she was having a tough week. If I got anything less than an A, I was told I was throwing away my future. The rules were just different for us. By high school, the imbalance was painful. Ellie had a packed schedule, cheer, dance, weekend getaways with friends. I had responsibilities. Whenever I asked for something, a night off, a chance to hang with friends, even to join a robotics club, I was told, that doesn't help the family. When I got accepted into a good engineering program out of state, I was so excited. It was a small school, but it felt like freedom. My dad shut it down instantly. He refused to co-sign the loan, said I needed to face reality. That if I wanted to go, I'd need to figure it out alone. So I did. I took out what loans I could. I worked 2 jobs, dishwashing at night and warehouse shifts on weekends. I survived on ramen, slept 4 hours a night, and still made the dean's list. They didn't come to my graduation. Didn't even send a card. I kept minimal contact for years. A birthday call here, a polite message there. But every time it circled back to Ellie. How proud they were of her. How she was really doing something with her life. How she needed help with her car payments, or was looking for a new apartment. Meanwhile, I was already working in tech. Already self-sufficient. Already done chasing their validation. Then, 5 years ago, everything changed. I met Greg. He was my boss's dad. We met at a company barbecue. I helped him set up chairs, and he struck up a conversation. He asked about my life. My family. I gave him short, guarded answers. But he listened. Over the next year, we became close. I'd help him fix things around his house. We played chess on Sundays. I started coming over for dinner. It was the first time in my life someone treated me like I wasn't a burden. Greg didn't try to replace anyone. He just showed up. Over and over, he was present, steady, encouraging. And slowly, he started calling me his son. It wasn't formal, it just evolved. First it was, that's my boy, fixing things again. Then, my son's coming over this weekend. Eventually it just became natural. He treated me like family without the guilt trips, the conditions, the weight. Last year at Thanksgiving, he raised his glass and said, to family, blood or not. I didn't cry then. But I did later, in my car, sitting in the driveway. 2 months ago, I posted a photo of me and Greg at the garage. Captioned it, grateful for the man who taught me what being a father really means. That's when all hell broke loose. Missed calls. Angry texts. Accusations from people who hadn't spoken to me in over a year. I had finally found peace. And they couldn't stand it. Update 1. 1 week later. I didn't expect this post to blow up, but thank you. Truly. I spent the better part of 2 days reading every comment, every message. Some of them made me laugh. Others made me cry. But the overwhelming support helped me stop second-guessing myself for the first time in a long time. So, here's what's happened since I posted. Yes, my parents saw it. I didn't tag them, didn't name names, but I guess someone sent it their way. Maybe a mutual on Facebook, maybe Ellie. I don't know, and at this point, I don't really care. My mom posted a status on Facebook the next day. It was vague, but not vague enough. Something like, some people turn their backs on the ones who raised them, but God sees it all. Kids these days forget who fed them, clothed them, sacrificed everything for them. It ended with a crying emoji and a Bible verse about honoring your parents. Then came the texts. First from Mom. You should be ashamed. Then from Dad. You've lost your way. That man isn't your family. Ellie went full social media. She posted a TikTok where she basically called me jealous and dramatic. Said I was trying to punish good parents just because they loved her too. She even used old pictures of us as kids, overlaid with sad music. Comments turned off, of course. She always did like controlling the narrative. I didn't respond. But it still got to me. What hurt wasn't the smear campaign. I expected that. What hurt was realizing how little they had to say that actually contradicted anything I wrote. They couldn't point to moments of love or support. They couldn't refute the facts. All they had was vague guilt and performative outrage. And then Greg found out. He saw the post. I didn't send it to him. He follows me online, so he saw it on his own. I was nervous. I thought maybe it was too much, that I dragged him into something he didn't sign up for. But when I came over that Sunday, he just gave me a long, firm hug. I wish you had told me sooner, he said. But I understand why you didn't. He told me I didn't have to protect him. That he was proud of me for speaking my truth. And then he said something I'll never forget. I always wanted a son who chose me. Not one who had to love me. You chose me. And that means the world. I barely held it together. I went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror, and just let it out. Years of holding things in, all breaking loose in a 5-minute cry I didn't know I needed. Later that evening over dinner, Greg and Sarah told me they were revising their will. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want anything from them, not money, not property, not responsibility. But they weren't offering it as an obligation. Sarah said, "You're not a guest in this family. You never were. We want to make sure you know that in every way that matters." Greg added, "You're our son. Period." I didn't argue. I didn't deflect. I just said thank you. And I meant it more than I've meant anything in my life. Since then, I've started to feel something I didn't realize was possible. Security. Not just financial or physical, but emotional. Knowing I have people who love me for who I am, not who they want me to be. I used to wonder if I was broken, because I never felt safe at home. Now I know I was never the problem. Thank you again to everyone who read, shared, or commented. You gave me the courage to keep going. More updates soon. For now, I'm just trying to breathe a little easier. Update 2. 2 months later. I wasn't going to post again. I thought I'd moved on. I'd gone no contact. I was building a life. I was healing. But toxic people don't like being ignored. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the middle of a client call, when our receptionist messaged me. She said there was an older couple in the lobby asking for me. They looked angry, but when she asked who they were, they softened and said, "We're his parents. We're here to make amends." I felt the blood drain from my face. I walked to the front quietly and saw them. My mom in a dramatic scarf, and my dad with a plastic sign in his hand that read in thick Sharpie, "We forgive you, come home." I asked security to remove them. Gently, kindly, but firmly. They protested. Loudly. Said they were there out of love. Said they just wanted 5 minutes. My dad tried to guilt the front desk staff. Told them they raised me, that they had every right to see their son. It was humiliating. And not for me, it was a performance. The kind they're good at. Public martyrdom. They eventually left. When I got home that night, there was a long email from Ellie. Subject line. You'll regret this. She said I was ungrateful. Said our parents were doing the best they could. Said I was being cold. That I'd break their hearts if something happened, and I hadn't made peace. And then she said something that struck me. You're going to regret this when they're gone. It was meant as a threat disguised as concern. But I didn't take it that way. I sat with that sentence for a while. Turned it over in my head. And I realized something. I won't regret it. I'm not the one who broke anything. I was a kid who asked to be seen. Who asked to be treated with love. They were the ones who turned that down. Over and over. I didn't cut ties out of cruelty. I cut ties to stop the bleeding. And Greg? He's been my rock through all of it. He didn't ask questions. He didn't tell me how to feel. He just showed up with takeout and said, "You okay?" He told me something that stuck. You don't owe anyone a front row seat to your healing just because they claim they bought the ticket. I've never felt more empowered. I didn't respond to Ellie's email. I didn't respond to the 10 follow-ups she sent after that. I let the silence speak for me. A few days ago, Greg and I were at a local coffee shop when a distant cousin I hadn't seen in years spotted us. She came over, looked awkward, and asked if I'd be coming home for Christmas. I smiled and said, I am home. Ellie went full social media. She posted a TikTok where she basically called me jealous and dramatic. Said I was trying to punish good parents just because they loved her too. She even used old pictures of us as kids, overlaid with sad music. Comments turned off, of course. She always did like controlling the narrative. I didn't respond. But it still got to me. What hurt wasn't the smear campaign. I expected that. What hurt was realizing how little they had to say that actually contradicted anything I wrote. They couldn't point to moments of love or support. They couldn't refute the facts. All they had was vague guilt and performative outrage. And then Greg found out. He saw the post. I didn't send it to him. He follows me online, so he saw it on his own. I was nervous. I thought maybe it was too much, that I dragged him into something he didn't sign up for. But when I came over that Sunday, he just gave me a long, firm hug. I wish you had told me sooner, he said. But I understand why you didn't. He told me I didn't have to protect him. That he was proud of me for speaking my truth. And then he said something I'll never forget. I always wanted a son who chose me. Not one who had to love me. You chose me. And that means the world. I barely held it together. I went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror, and just let it out. Years of holding things in, all breaking loose in a 5-minute cry I didn't know I needed. Later that evening over dinner, Greg and Sarah told me they were revising their will. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want anything from them, not money, not property, not responsibility. But they weren't offering it as an obligation. Sarah said, "You're not a guest in this family. You never were. We want to make sure you know that in every way that matters." Greg added, "You're our son. Period." I didn't argue. I didn't deflect. I just said thank you. And I meant it more than I've meant anything in my life. Since then, I've started to feel something I didn't realize was possible. Security. Not just financial or physical, but emotional. Knowing I have people who love me for who I am, not who they want me to be. I used to wonder if I was broken, because I never felt safe at home. Now I know I was never the problem. Thank you again to everyone who read, shared, or commented. You gave me the courage to keep going. More updates soon. For now, I'm just trying to breathe a little easier. Update 2. 2 months later. I wasn't going to post again. I thought I'd moved on. I'd gone no contact. I was building a life. I was healing. But toxic people don't like being ignored. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the middle of a client call, when our receptionist messaged me. She said there was an older couple in the lobby asking for me. They looked angry, but when she asked who they were, they softened and said, "We're his parents. We're here to make amends." I felt the blood drain from my face. I walked to the front quietly and saw them. My mom in a dramatic scarf, and my dad with a plastic sign in his hand that read in thick Sharpie, "We forgive you, come home." I asked security to remove them. Gently, kindly, but firmly. They protested. Loudly. Said they were there out of love. Said they just wanted 5 minutes. My dad tried to guilt the front desk staff. Told them they raised me, that they had every right to see their son. It was humiliating. And not for me, it was a performance. The kind they're good at. Public martyrdom. They eventually left. When I got home that night, there was a long email from Ellie. Subject line. "You'll regret this." She said I was ungrateful. Said our parents were doing the best they could. Said I was being cold. That I'd break their hearts if something happened, and I hadn't made peace. And then she said something that struck me. "You're going to regret this when they're gone." It was meant as a threat disguised as concern. But I didn't take it that way. I sat with that sentence for a while. Turned it over in my head. And I realized something. I won't regret it. I'm not the one who broke anything. I was a kid who asked to be seen. Who asked to be treated with love. They were the ones who turned that down. Over and over. I didn't cut ties out of cruelty. I cut ties to stop the bleeding. And Greg? He's been my rock through all of it. He didn't ask questions. He didn't tell me how to feel. He just showed up with takeout and said, "You okay?" He told me something that stuck. You don't owe anyone a front row seat to your healing just because they claim they bought the ticket. I've never felt more empowered. I didn't respond to Ellie's email. I didn't respond to the 10 follow-ups she sent after that. I let the silence speak for me. A few days ago, Greg and I were at a local coffee shop when a distant cousin I hadn't seen in years spotted us. She came over, looked awkward, and asked if I'd be coming home for Christmas. I smiled and said, "I am home." She didn't say anything after that. And you know what? That silence felt good too. I don't regret any of it. Not letting Greg into my life. Not walking away from people who only loved me when I was useful. Not choosing peace over performative guilt. This is my family now. And I'm exactly where I belong. Update 3, 3 months later. They're still trying. Not as aggressively now, but in that exhausting, low-energy way toxic people do when they realize you're not coming back. Passive-aggressive Facebook posts. Vague Instagram stories. Ellie posted old pictures of us as kids with captions like, "When he still cared." Relatives I barely talked to have started messaging me. Some with concern, some with guilt, some with veiled threats disguised as family wisdom. Your parents are heartbroken. Don't let pride ruin your family. You're being too harsh. Funny how none of those people messaged me when I was 19 and sleeping on a futon, juggling warehouse work and night classes, surviving on ramen while Ellie got monthly allowances. Funny how none of them ever asked what it felt like to parent yourself before you hit puberty. Greg, as always, keeps me grounded. He doesn't jump in to fix it. He just listens. Offers advice when I ask for it. And sometimes drops wisdom that hits me like a ton of bricks. People who never respect your boundaries will always call it betrayal when you finally enforce them. I've written that quote down. It's in my fridge. And it's true. It's painfully, beautifully true. My parents aren't trying to reconnect because they miss me. They miss control. They miss their scapegoat. They miss the person who would drop everything to fix their messes, smooth over their drama, absorb their dysfunction like a human sponge. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just free. I walk differently now. I sleep better. I smile without wondering if I've done enough to deserve it. The more they try to reach in from the past, the more I realize how far I've come. Ellie tried again last week. Send me a screenshot of one of Greg's Facebook posts. Something innocent and heartwarming about teaching me to fix a broken fence. Her message just said, "This is embarrassing." I didn't reply. Because it's not embarrassing. What's embarrassing is being almost 30 and still trying to gatekeep someone else's peace. What's embarrassing is being so threatened by someone's happiness that you have to tear it down publicly. Greg told me later that he saw the comment section on that post. He said he was ready to remove it if I wanted. I told him no. Let it stay. Because I'm proud of that moment. Proud of the fence we fixed. Proud of the man I've become with Greg's help. Proud of the quiet, solid life I've built away from the chaos. And I'm done hiding it. Update 4. 4 months later. Last week, Greg and Sarah held a family gathering for their anniversary. It wasn't just a casual dinner. It was a real event. String lights across the yard, live acoustic music, 2 food trucks. Sarah insisted on a taco bar and Greg got his favorite barbecue. And over 40 people in attendance. It was warm, loud, and full of the kind of joy I never grew up with. It felt like something out of a life I used to think belonged to other people. Around 7 p.m., Greg clinked his glass and announced to everyone that he wanted me to say a few words. I froze for a second. Public speaking still rattles me. But then I looked at him, his smile, the quiet nod of encouragement, and I felt steady. I took a breath and stood up. I said, "Family isn't DNA. It's not guilt. It's not an obligation. Family is showing up when it's hard. Loving without terms. Believing in someone who was never told they were worth it. Thank you for being my family." Silence. Then applause. Then hugs. Sarah kissed my cheek. Greg squeezed my shoulder. And for a moment, I just stood there, soaking it all in. That was the first time in my life that I felt completely, fully included. Not tolerated, not useful, just wanted. Later that night someone pulled me aside. One of Greg's nephews, I think. He said, "I didn't know your story, man. But I'm glad you're here. It wouldn't have felt right without you." That simple statement nearly broke me again. I left that night with my arms full of leftovers, and my chest full of something I didn't recognize right away. But I know now. It was peaceful. The next morning, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I didn't need one. I'd know that handwriting anywhere. All caps. Sharp strokes. Black ink that always seemed angry even when it was meant to be loving. Inside was a single line. "You made your choice. Hope you're happy." No signature. No attempt at warmth. Just a cold, bitter epitaph for a relationship that had long since rotted. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I laughed. Because yes, I did make my choice. And yes, I am happy. Happier than I've ever been. Greg and Sarah came over that weekend. We watched football and ate leftover brisket. Greg gave me a key to their house, just casually slid it across the counter and said, "In case you ever need it and we're out." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't ceremonial. But to me it meant more than any blood tie ever could. I've stopped checking my old family's pages. I've stopped listening to the flying monkeys who still send the occasional guilt text. I've stopped waiting for an apology that will never come. Because I don't need closure from the people who broke me. Final edit. 6 months later. A lot has changed. Greg and I took a road trip last month. Just the two of us. He showed me where he grew up, his old school, the shop where he learned to weld. We stopped at tiny diners, listened to old rock music on the highway, and talked about everything. And I mean everything. No pretending, no judgment. Just two men having the kind of conversations I used to envy on TV. He told me stories from his youth that made me laugh, cry, and think. About his regrets, his first love, the time he nearly quit everything after losing his father. Then, while watching the sunset over a cornfield in Iowa, he said something I'll never forget. "If I'd had a son, I would have wanted him to turn out like you. No question." I couldn't speak for a full minute. I just nodded and blinked hard. Because sometimes silence says more than words. When we got home, Sarah had framed a photo of the two of us from the trip. We're standing next to a rusted old water tower, wind in our hair. Both smiling with that easy kind of peace that only comes when you stop running from the past. Meanwhile, from the toxic side of my old life, I've started hearing things. My parents apparently are in damage control mode. They've stopped being as public with their jabs. My dad told someone at a church gathering that, not all wounds heal in time, especially when the child refuses to pick up the phone. My mom, I'm told, still tells anyone who'll listen that I was easily led astray. The thing is, they haven't changed. Not even a little. I used to think they might. That maybe, just maybe, if I distanced myself, they'd reflect. Feel the absence. Realize what they did. That they'd reach out with a real apology. But no. They didn't grow. They just shifted tactics. Played victim louder. Got quieter in their cruelty. More sophisticated in their manipulation. It doesn't work on me anymore. Ellie did try one last Hail Mary. A long rambling email. 8 paragraphs of forgiveness, revisionist history, and veiled guilt. She said she wanted us to be together for Christmas. Said, like old times twice. Said, our parents miss you 3 times. I didn't reply. I didn't even get angry. Because here's the thing about people who confuse obligation with love. The only way to win is to stop playing. I spent the holidays with Greg and Sarah. They gave me socks, a new set of tools, homemade cookies. I gave them a framed photo of the 3 of us from Thanksgiving. We sat by the fire, watched old movies, and made hot chocolate. Not once did I have to earn my seat at the table. That's what love feels like. I've stopped checking my family's social media. I've muted the relatives who still think blood is everything. I've stopped explaining myself to people who were never interested in hearing the truth. Some days I look back and feel a strange mix of sadness and pride. Sadness for the kid I was, who kept trying to be good enough. Pride for the man I became, who realized he didn't have to be. I'm not healed, but I am healing. And if you're reading this, and you've been made to feel like love is a transaction, let me say this clearly. You don't owe your parents access to your life just because they share your DNA. You owe yourself safety. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself the right to walk away. Choose peace. Choose healing. Choose your own damn table, then fill it with people who actually want you there. That's what I did. And I've never looked back. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.